GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. Of course, we have patches. And what's up? We have the intro uploading on the new site here as we speak, and eventually it'll process. But I think Tony just jumped in, so welcome Tony from New Jersey for jumping in. All right, welcome. Thanks for jumping in. I guess we can try to say no shit. I don't know if you heard me any of that.
All right. It was really low.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, I just moved everything over to a new StreamYard because I'm not paying right now. I'm doing the free account. So just moved everything over. Let me push the button. AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007. And since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. All right, now it's kind of getting back to the normal production level, I guess. Not that it was super big to begin with, but thanks everybody for joining us. So we don't think we did a Clover today. He said something about not caring about guns that much and not really being interested in the Second Amendment. I didn't exactly remember what he said, but something about those things. So we'll see if he ever shows up again. But Tony has joined us tonight. Thanks again for joining us.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Pretty much. I've been kind of running around and then realized the show was about to start. My problem is I get up way too early these days. So this is like 7 in the morning or 7 in the evening for me. So it's just a weird time to jump in and grab the show. So I'm kind of getting all my stuff together here. And what was I going to say? I was saying I set up the thumbnail today with the Barbie Oppenheimer thing. So we got a poll going if you're in Camp 2A for Barbie or if you're going for the Cloverheimer, or if you like both or neither. And right now, neither is slaughtering all of them. So I don't know what that means. Either they hate everybody on this show or they hate them two movies. So I'm going to start off with Tony. You going to see any of these movies? You've already seen them? Or are you planning on it?
Oh, no. Have no plans to see either movie at all.
Yeah, right on. So I'm pretty sure this is a fairly desperate attempt by Hollywood or media in general to distract or to get money back to Hollywood, or essentially just to distract from all the stuff going on, because I've watched both of these movies now, and both of them are not good movies at all. So, I mean, they're okay, but they're not good. So there's no reason for all this hype at all, except for that the only two movies out right now, I guess. But I think it's also, hey, these are movies and people don't go to movies anymore. So if we act like somehow there's some hype here, we can get people into seats. I can only imagine that's what it's about. But these are not very interesting movies. So nobody's saying Barbie. I think Barbie's actually better than the Cloverheimer movie. Oh my goodness, it's so boring. I kind of know the story or whatever, but this is like a 3-hour boring version of the like cool documentaries I've seen that just get the information across in an hour. This is dramatization and trying to, I have no idea, but it's definitely putting today's, what is it called when you take the like lens of today's politics and shove it on history as if those people were living the same lives as us. And I'm not saying they were living better or worse lives. I'm just saying they were
anachronism.
Is that what it is? I know there's
anachronistic or something like that. Yeah. But I think
go ahead.
I just look at the hype of them both, and I'm like, one, it's a Barbie movie. This is a toy movie. They never really hype these up to the point that it's the movie to see this summer. And they even try to tie fashion into it, like for adults, not kids. And I'm like, I think this is Hollywood got caught with his pants down by the Sound of Freedom movie. And now they're trying to push everything. So the way they tried to say it was, right wing and paint it with politics. That didn't work. So they stopped talking about it. And now they're trying to hype something else up that's garbage. I'm like, you have a very successful movie that was made by someone independent about something that's been in the news, that many Hollywood stars have talked about before, from Mark Wahlberg to really good looking guy married to Demi Moore. Was on the 70s show.
Kuchter or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever his name is. Yeah. Yeah. Him.
No, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. And I was watching something. I didn't watch. I was looking at Twitter, which I don't really like. It's not that I don't like Twitter. It's just that everybody I follow on Twitter, I guess, follows angry shit. So it shows me all their, all the angry adjacent shit. So I just don't like scrolling through Twitter. But what I do is I'm trying to mess with the Twitter logarithm. So I'll go in there. Usually I change my Twitter header, whatever the picture on Twitter every day, just to play around and get me over there. And then I'll scroll down and like you post stuff that's interesting. Rhonda Ezel posts interesting things. Like there's a couple of people that post interesting things over there. John Lott, I'll repost, when I see something interesting, I'll try to repost it. And then I'm just scrolling down and saying, don't show me this, don't show me this, don't show me this, like all kinds of divisive, hateful shit. I don't like to see the low-hanging outliers of violence or things that would make people dislike each other. Like, fuck all that. So I tell the logarithm to quit showing it to me. But, man, I can mess with the Instagram logarithm pretty good. I can mess with the YouTube logarithm real easy because I just delete everything I watch that I don't like on Instagram, on YouTube, and it does a pretty good job of feeding me stuff that is at least interesting. But, yeah, that Twitter one's pretty angry. So anyway, over there I saw something that was essentially that movie, the Sound of Freedom movie at a theater, and it was like they were playing a radio station really loud instead of this soundtrack to the movie. And they had the lights on and then off and then on. And the person in the thing was saying that, it used to be, there was a bunch of people in there, but they had all left because the movie kept starting and restarting. And the radio playing wasn't the soundtrack. It was just the whatever town's radio was playing really loud. So they were essentially screwing with it, potentially either screwing with it or totally neglecting the theater room, just letting it go haywire with the robots or something, or somebody was up there messing with it. So like you're saying, there's some potential issue with them either not liking an independent or the topic of it or any of the above or all of the above, right? And then these being the, I don't know, distraction or something. Thing is, the Barbie movie wasn't that bad. It's not the greatest movie, but it's have you ever seen Last Action Hero? I think
Hero,
Tiger, long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how it was kind of trippy, like it was a movie with, they kind of turned the movie inside out, and the audience was part of the movie, and the kid was like an audience, and it was sort of like that, where it's Barbie and she's a Barbie doll, but then she goes into real life and realizes stuff, and then it's like Mattel is trying to shove her back into the Barbie world and stuff. So it's kind of, it's more layered than a typical like G.I. Joe or something, where it's just a movie adaptation of the toy. They're playing around a little bit, and they have some fun with it, and it's interesting to look at because of the Barbie part of it. It's kind of like a Lego movie or something. They did all kinds of weird stuff to the art of it to make it seem like a weird adaptation, or maybe like the Simpsons movie. Anyway, so it's kind of an interesting movie, but it is, it's just Barbie or whatever. But anyway, they go into all kinds of stuff about how the doll is evolved, and it's not really like watching a documentary, but it's definitely more interesting than just watching like Barbie and Ken having an adventure or something like that. But at the same time, it's just a movie, like you're saying. It's like whatever you call it, summer movie, trying to make some money off of a doll. And I'm sure Mattel paid them to make the movie, right?
Oh, heck yeah. Or at least the rights had to be purchased. Like nobody does that and not get paid. But
collaboration or something.
Because I'm looking at this, right, and I'm like, there's a movie about child trafficking written by a dude that fought it. Like, names were changed, but this is what's really going on. And I'm just watching it going, so it seems to me the media only wants you to get upset when they want you to get upset over the things they want you to get upset about. Yeah. If something comes out like this, all of a sudden it's like, well, it's uncontrolled and we can't let these people come up with their own, solutions without us giving it to them. That's the way I see something like this. It's like, yeah, we have a problem and we need to attack it, and it doesn't need to be political. Again, you've had people in Hollywood telling you this over and over again, and they get kind of quieted down. Ashton Kutcher, that's his name. They get kind of shoved down and quieted. You don't see it. I mean, you have this guy actually testifying in front of the Senate, and it didn't get a lot of play. Like, Hollywood should have been all over this, but they're not. Then you find out about Epstein, and then you find out about, what's that guy's name, who was the Hollywood producer? Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, who was being mean to girls back in the day.
Yeah, and then you know about the casting couch. I mean, it's just a thing that people know. Even if you've never made a movie, you've heard the term. So yeah, there's a bunch of exploitation going on, and if somebody brings it up that's not saying the things they need to be said, or like the powers that be want them to be said, they shut them down, because it's not like Harvey Weinstein is the last and only dude to actually use his position of power to sexually exploit men and women in Hollywood. But you don't want anything done about it for real, because that's the way business is done. And I look at this child sex trafficking as another part of that. And now that I'm actually friends with people that fight stuff like this, human trafficking, I'm more paying attention. I mean, you follow some of the same people I do, and Hustle Queen is one of the ladies that fights that. Kendra Geronimo. And she's been putting in work for years. And she was actually in a movie that came out, last year? Another independent movie about human trafficking involving the people that were in it. It was more like a documentary. But it was like another thing that didn't hit because Hollywood didn't tell you to. So I look at it as a conspiracy, but not of like tinfoil hat. I'm just thinking, or like a whole bunch of people got together and have a meeting. It's just some things they won't allow you to talk about. I mean, think about the things we know now. Rock Hudson back in the day, Liberace. Everybody knew those people were gay, but you just didn't say it. It wasn't like they had a meeting of all the media saying you don't talk about it. It was just things you didn't talk about. So I look at stuff
I think
like,
some of this comes from, it evolves, right? So it comes from when very few people ran, you name it, newspapers, media, cable television channels, whatever, movies, studios and stuff. And then mix that with tolerance / trends, like what the society will tolerate and what the trends of society are. So you get this mix of all that, and then it's fairly recent that the end user has felt like they've got a say or a seat at the table, and it's been fairly recent since they did, honestly, because when it was back in the day and you'd make a movie and it was reliant on the movie theaters and there was this big infrastructure, if somebody came in and bucked the system, you were screwing things over, like you were going to disrupt the industry or whatever. So I could see why everyone had a interest in, you're not going to make your own movie theater. In other words, you're not going to come up with some other format besides movie. You're just going to make your stuff in movies when that's all there is. Nowadays, you can do streaming, you could do podcasts, you can create however you want. So a lot tougher for somebody to dominate the message, a lot tougher for someone to say you have to do it this way or something just because it, it's been done that way or it benefits anybody. So anyway, I'm saying that's fairly recent development that people, can do whatever they want, and people feel like they've got a seat at the table to have at whatever the conversation is, like what content will be created, how it gets distributed, all those kind of things. And well, it's going to, and time has to happen. So we're seeing the movie industry not buckle under, but become second fiddle to what do they call it, video game industry. And the video game industry didn't take that first number one spot with all the money and do so excellent with it. It's not like they did anything good with it. All they did was get big and diversify and kind of stagnate. I don't think video games have changed much in a while. Maybe I'm wrong, but you've got that whole thing, which is for good or bad, bigger than Hollywood, and Hollywood's trying to struggle with that, but then they're also trying to struggle with just the lack of interest in a giant Hollywood movie. And then I can't even imagine where the decisions get made between when do they give up on the American audience, I guess, or and cater to the international audience, which has got to be more money at some point. And if we, for example, I'll dig into YouTube or Instagram stories or watching podcasts or whatever it is that, homegrown type of content, and we value less the big Hollywood stuff, then they're going to either go out of business or start becoming like Bollywood or more, whatever you call those, like international movies that appeal to just anybody. They're just like action or just romance or whatever, just sort of like dime novel type of movies that don't even have a lot of language. They're mostly music and, and I don't know where I'm going. I'm just kind of ranting, I guess, but I think that's part of it. I don't think it's really like they've got some stranglehold. I think that to some extent they're flailing and this is all they got left and they're trying some stuff, but I don't see them lasting too much longer as far as Hollywood goes now in CGI. And I mean, if I had time, I could sit there in Blender and make like a really cool version of pretty much any movie you've seen, because now all the techniques have been established and you can copy and paste to some extent. So, now that digital stuff exists, all you really got to do is be willing to accept something that isn't cutting edge, and then boom, you can pretty much make any movie you want. So anyway, I just think things will change here going forward.
Oh yeah, I believe it all has something to do with each other, especially when you have this thing, owned by Disney, and then they lost grips of it, and now it like theater to theater for theater, if you did the math right, was actually competing with the blockbuster of the week, which was Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones movie. I'm like, whatever, dude. My whole thing is you can't. I think we have more options. We have more entertainment available. Either Hollywood has to grow with it, and now when you throw in technology, you throw in AI, and you throw in the fact that Hollywood is just trying to make a killing on the backs of others, with the writer strike going on now, they're racking up a lot of potential losses.
Oh, that's an interesting part too. With the writer's strike, they probably know they're not going to be eating for a while. So the more hype they give to these movies that are already in the pipe, this is their last hurrah. But you're right, they're also ignoring Indiana Jones, which wasn't my favorite one, but it wasn't my least favorite one. And they're just not even talking about it. Again, I think that's why this seems like it's fake, this whole like fake hype between these two. Because I'm telling you, that boring nuclear bomb movie is horrible. I can't imagine anybody would like to watch that unless you were bored and you just like watching drama for 3 hours. No,
but again,
barely is super boring. Not even a documentary, it's just super boring.
Yeah. So that's why I'm looking at it the same way. It's like, they're trying to push their come watch this movie. It's really important. And of course, I'm like, I don't know how good a Barbie movie can be, right? Because I'm going, cartoonish. You telling me it was like Last Action Hero, which was kind of cool. It was kind of weird, but kind of cool. And definitely
fairly cool. Just interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it's great, just interesting. Kind of like Time Cop. Okay. Like it had a little bit of layers to it. Like, okay, they played with it a little bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but I'm just looking at it like, okay, it was interesting, but it's not blockbuster interesting. And because yesterday was a rough day at work, so I ended up not working. I was at work, but I was stuck. So I saw Good Morning America for the first time, probably in 30 years. And they were pushing the Barbie thing hard all morning. Like 2 straight hours, I think it was. Just Barbie this, Barbie that. They did exercises that were Barbie themed. They were supposed to be about, the summer blockbuster. And they had like one, it was the Mission Impossible workout. The other one was the Little Mermaid workout. And one was the Barbie workout. And then they had to get the Barbie fashion in. And I'm like, why are they pushing this movie? Because I don't know anything about it at all. You know what I mean? And I'm like, why are they pushing this so hard? And that's what made me think about what's going on between the strike, between the, hey, listen, if you can't destroy something with word of mouth, you just ignore it. And that's one of the things I think they're doing with that Sound of Freedom movie. And I'm just like, I'm thinking Hollywood's catching an L. I'm thinking COVID kind of took away, and people realize, hey, I can stream movies, and I don't have to wait in line. I don't have to pay $20 a ticket. I don't have to overpay for popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, a giant movie is fun for, like maybe Avatar, like a giant,
Hmm.
thing, or Star Wars for sure. If you like something big, like an ocean movie maybe or something, but maybe a jungle movie or something, like, I don't know, something that, you get the experience of having it just be your whole peripheral vision and everything. But,
Hmm.
like a drama movie, no way. Or
No.
even, well, I guess something like a cartoon or something might be interesting, but yeah, you get the same if you're just watching the show or listening to the dialogue. You can get that off of any machine,
Oh
and the
yeah.
music is really important. So anyway, so
Oh
let
yeah.
me keep digging in. We're here
Yeah.
to
What
have.
we got going on with gun stuff? Huh?
We don't have to have too many gun stuff, but there are a bunch of people joining us. Woods had said, "Why do bad guys in movies almost never use a holster?" Well, I don't know. I guess it depends because you do see them wear like shoulder holsters. They'll make like elaborate draws or reholsters sometimes, but often they're just. I think part of it is when I'm thinking of some of my recent shows I've watched. It's like the gun will be, I don't know, they'll take it or it'll be loose on the ground from somebody else or something, or it gets put into the scene, but they didn't bring it there. So in other words, they didn't have it in a holster or a bag or anything. They just got hold of it, and then they'll jam it in their pants or whatever in order to hold something else or do something else or climb a ladder or whatever. So I'm thinking there's that where it's just the most opportune thing to do, which is almost always fake because we all know that guns get pretty hot and you're not jamming them in your pants raw after shooting them for any length of time unless it's really, really cold out.
No, that's what I do with mine. I run like 7 magazines with a running gunfight. But you never see me reload. But I'm somehow, I've laid down a base of fire like I'm using a belt fan, and then I just, shove it in the back of my pants. Just all right, life goes on.
Or appendix.
Oh, that's even better. Appendix, no holster, right down the front of the pants.
But it's also probably some element to make it seem like the bad guys are more reckless, like don't care.
Some of it
Yeah,
is, and some of it is also writers don't know anything about firearms, firearm safety, or firearms use.
that's true. Yeah, they have no clue. So to them, whatever they've seen in a movie, or they don't care in the director, it's up to the director or whatever.
Hmm. So he
Let's
pulls
see.
it. Character pulls gun. From where? How's he carrying it? Where is it?
Well, I mean, have you seen? I've seen mostly from watching John Locke because I don't watch these shows anymore, but I have seen them in the past. And it always drove me nuts. But like CSI or that kind of show, if they don't have, and sometimes even if they probably do have police or real life, what do you call them, like experts that'll tell them, hey, you look like an idiot, move this over or do this a different way.
Hmm.
They'll wear their like holsters all goofy ass, like up front, backwards, or like floppy out front. And
Yeah.
it's always like the detectives and shit nowadays. So instead of making them look like they're aware of how to hold a gun or carry a gun or whatever, it's always like some, I don't know if it's supposed to be like, hey, just to make sure you don't forget we're carrying a gun, or else it's like you say the actors just have no concept, so they just assume guns are to be carried floppy out front like a weird cell phone or something. They'll have their badge on their belt.
So it's all hey, whatever, man. Yeah, they were talking about appendix carry on Yankees show. Man, he had an
He's,
opinion that it
he's
was.
having a fit about it, I guess, right?
I I was gonna watch it, and other stuff came up because I want to hear what he has to say, even if I don't agree with him. Or even if I do agree with him, he might brings up points. Whatever. I like to see people that actually talk things out. But I haven't watched this. But I mean, I personally carry appendix carry, and there's nothing wrong with it,
Yeah, I
in
didn't
my
watch the
opinion.
Yankees thing. I don't have a problem with it either. I don't do it, but I know
I
way
mean,
too many people that do it, and the idea. I don't like the idea of not doing something because it might not be. Once you start getting too many, like, well, it could be a bad idea if. Well, anything's a bad idea if you put some ifs in there. So
hmm.
I go with more of the reality of, and just works for too many people. Plus, you're not allowed to talk about it, but that people have been carrying that way since like the beginning of time. Sometimes
Yeah,
just in their belt, but oftentimes into their pants because it's just it's just easier. But it's
belt,
just
sash,
people have been
all
carrying
of it.
knives that way, right? Like people carried knives that way. So come on.
Yep, that's what I think it is. I'm like, nothing's new about it. I mean, nothing's new about it. You just have to be careful, just like any other time you administratively handle a firearm.
And
That's
then a lot of it is being comfortable. Now I don't like small of the back either. To me, it seems creepy, but I don't think there should be a law against it or nothing. It's just a dumb thing to do for a
Mhm.
lot of reasons, I think. But at the same time, if it works for somebody for something, I can't imagine what
Yeah,
there's a law against it. Just you prepare people to get all give you their opinion about it, and assume same thing with appendix. If you're going to do it, you got to know that there's going to be some people that are going to feel like they're going to give you their opinion about it.
yep. And
All right,
again,
so
fine with it. Have an
that,
opinion, but make an educated opinion.
well, exactly. The having the same old for the 50th time, like that's just adding abuse to the or adding nuisance to do that. Bring something new to it. Unapologetically, I'm just seeing that the chat isn't showing up on our computer. So the only thing I could think of is maybe refresh. Sometimes I'll notice that the stuff doesn't all engage. Sometimes if this page loads slowly. So sometimes just refreshing gives it a chance to kind of go through and reload everything.
Yeah, I see. Unapologetically armed says they have an what is it? An Enigma holster from Sarah.
Yeah, that girl holster. The suspension system, really? It's a suspension system, and then you put your holster on that, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's pretty awesome if you can use it.
Well, I mean,
Any
it's the evolution of a bunch of girls wearing holsters and not just making it pink or lighter or something. Like they're actually thinking about the way girls are, the way they look and shape and that kind of stuff, but the way they wear their clothes also. And then experimentation, I guess, and development, and it's pretty much been either the right thing at the right time or a game changer or both for female carry, I'd say. But I haven't been paying that much attention. But from my angle, it came along, I don't know, about after half a dozen or even 18 different ladies holsters. I mean, it's 18 if you count like the bra holsters and some of the really
Mhm.
girly stuff like garter holsters and stuff. But if you just go
Oh,
with like stuff that's developed for ladies, like a t-shirt that's cut in a lady's cut. So it's not just like you got to wear a guy's t-shirt, with a holster in the armpit. Like there's been lady stuff for a while, but I'm not sure how much of that was ladies doing it. And even then, if a lady puts a lot of time and effort into making a purse holder or holster, some other lady's going to be like, I'm never going to carry a purse holster. So, you know what I mean? There's just going to be those kind of mix matches or you know what I mean? Like where they're just like dudes, like appendix. You put all kinds of effort into an appendix holster. Yankees going to come along and never even consider it, right?
well, I don't know about the whole girl thing because I think it might have been better marketed on Sarah and John's part because it's dudes. I mean, one of my guys reviewed it. He was like, "It's awesome. I can wear shorts or sweatpants." So, I mean, I don't even know if it started out as girls, just as a
Well, I'm pretty
female.
sure it started as a girl holster, but then, yeah, a bunch of dudes figured out that they can wear it with sweatpants and
Yeah.
shorts and
So
what.
it works, man. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, look, if you can safely wear your firearm, draw your firearm, carry your firearm, use whatever means is necessary. There's pros and cons with it all. I still think it's better than off body carry because it's on you. As long as because there were some horrible ideas that didn't make you safe, that made you actually unsafe by to holster it or unholster it. Couple of things. One, it didn't cover the trigger guard, or the cover on the trigger guard was just cloth. You know what I mean? So that would allow you to still, if you
And
screwed
after,
up,
like, for
go
the
ahead.
first couple of months, it would be stiff, let's say, like useful. And then
Hmm.
after a little bit of time wearing it, became soft and actually dangerous type of thing sometimes.
Yep, that was one of the things I didn't like. And yeah, and also when you're holstering it for the day, it's like if it causes you to point the gun, like directly into your body, you might want to rethink that. Yeah, fanny packs are making a comeback too, which is fine. Still, same thing about a fanny pack now that was about a fanny pack then. I see you one on. I'm assuming you have a gun in it.
I'm all right with funny packs,
I'm
especially in
cool.
Arizona where it's like, you don't want to be wearing a bunch of clothes sometimes. I can imagine like Florida must be the same way with this plus humidity. Bleh. Like I'd want to be wearing shorts or whatever.
Hmm.
Let's go back, and Gizzard again earlier said, I miss all the cop shows from the 60s and early 70s when all the detectives carried a J frame with unlimited ammo. Well, they could just reload quick because back in the day, you just reloaded your revolver so often you could just reload it quick. But yeah, 5-shot revolvers, man, that was the days, man. J frames, awesome. My favorite is the pilot of Rockford Files because he carried around a revolver, a little J frame, and he barely ever used it. But in the pilot episode, he gets traced out into the desert. He chases somebody out in the desert, I forget, and there's a plane flying around. They go out to the desert to get in the plane, I think, and then they fly around in this plane and try to shoot at him, and he shoots at them with a J frame and knocks the plane out of the air. I'm like, yeah, that's epic. So
Nice.
proof that a J frame can knock an airplane out of the air.
Not since World War One has a 38 special. Been used to down like the first months of World War One.
But that's for real, right? Some guy was shooting out of somebody else on another plane.
Dude, those guys brought everything in. They brought revolvers, they brought semi-autos, they came in with bolt actions. I memean, there's that 1903 Air Service that has like a 25 round magazine of the M1903 30-06 with a 25 round mag.
But it's bolt action?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, what's the name has it on? CNR Arsenal. They do a minute of May if you just want to see the short one and watch her run it. Yeah. It's like 5 stripper clips she loads in that sucker first. Oh, like, can you imagine flying this plane with like, the 50 horsepower engine that's pretty much a powered kite and you're working a bolt action shooting at the dude next to you?
It would have been like science fiction though.
It's crazy, right?
So Georgia Trucker saying, I think everyone on Twitter is angry. See, that's the thing. I know that they're probably not, but I suspect the people that I followed on there originally, because I haven't used Twitter very much until, I don't know, maybe a year now. I've been playing with it more. Whenever What's-His-Face bought it, I think that's when I first started looking at it more, because before then it was essentially useless. Nobody I knew was even using Twitter. So I would post stuff over there and it wouldn't get any views. And I looked over there and there wasn't anything interesting going on. And it was just bickering and complaining about the news. And I could care less about the news most of the time. And if I do want to learn about it, I'm going to go ask somebody who follows the news. I'm not going to go just randomly look at people angry about the news on Twitter. So anyway, I started watching it whenever What's-His-Face bought it, just to see what's up over there and see if there's any more action. And there's certainly more people using it, it seems like. But like I say, I think the people I'm following from, I don't even know, back in like 2009 or whenever I started getting on Twitter and following people, I followed a lot of the just gun review type of stuff that I was doing back then. And those people essentially follow the news and complain, or follow the news and get mad, or follow the news and get elated. Because I don't want to say 50-50 because it's more like 30-70. But 30% of the time they're like, it's all over. We've won. It's done. Like, we just got good news. It's over. Everybody celebrate. It finally happened. And then 70% of the time it's all over. The sky's fallen. We got bad news that we didn't want, and it's over. There's no way to come back from this. It's like they're back and forth on this stuff constantly. So I'm thinking that might be why I'm seeing all this anger and worthlessness on Twitter. But anyway, I've been spending now too long probably trying to fight its logarithm. Maybe I'll quit. What do you think? Do you play with Twitter at all, or what do you think? Are they angry over there?
Yeah. I post to Twitter because my Instagram automatically posts to Twitter. That was happening.
Yeah, I can make
So
that happen too. Yeah.
yeah, there was like 3,000. I have like 3,000 posts on Twitter, but about 3 years ago, Maj Toure Black Guns Matter started posting stuff on Twitter, and then he'd do a screenshot and repost it as something on IG. And he told me he got a big response on that, so that's what I started doing. I started, posting whatever, and then I bring it into my stories. And then when Reels started, I just made it a reel, posted it with like 15 seconds of music behind it, and then wrote my content. And they promoted that, so that kind of blew up, and I was able to get a lot of followers on that and a lot of traction, a lot of eyeballs on my account. So that helps. So I've been doing that like 2 to 3 times a week. Posting my Twitter message on Instagram, or posting someone's Twitter message that made sense to me on Instagram. Because you're right, there's a lot of divisiveness on Twitter, and it's just out there just for the sake of being divisive. It's argumentative, and I'm not even sure some of these people either are real or actually believe in what they say. They're just doing it for the attention, for the so people pay attention to them, and it's ridiculous. And so many people, if again they are real, because it could be just one person with multiple accounts arguing with themselves until they get others caught up in that vortex of bullcrap. Like, I don't put that past people either, and I've actually watched Moms in Arms point that out on someone. It was like, yeah, you argue, and this person argues, and this person argues, and as I go back through your page, because you have like different viewpoints, I see you actually on other pages talking about other topics using these same accounts. Find that really weird that somehow 3 people that have, different ideas about something, like 180 degrees different, would somehow get in arguments everywhere they go. I'm like, okay. Yeah, some of this stuff is created.
Yeah, and I think some people have very little interest or opinion on some of this stuff, but they repost or keep bringing it up because it's views. Like, I could care less about this state's blah, 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 but I know every time I bring it up, everybody in that state clicks on it. So I'm going to keep bringing it up and making it, you know what I mean? I think there's some of that happen in different places too. Or there's a layer of that. I don't want to say it's like all that, but well, should I post today? Well, I'm going to make a few bucks. So yeah, I guess I think there's like that incentive. All right. Well, I'm going to go on to the next one, since this one's a little bit different than a gun one, but it should be interesting nonetheless. Vanessa Kitty is saying, lost my keys, bolt cutter, and cordless. Oh, hold on. I don't know if that means cordless bolt cutter.
Yeah, cordless bolt cutter.
Or a bolt cutter and some kind of cordless drill or something incoming. So
yeah, we got one.
Assume this means door to the house. What would be your remedy for lost key, front door of the house?
Well, if she's using a bolt cutter, I'm assuming this is a padlock, because that's not going to get you in the door regular knob.
That's true.
Yeah, so I'm assuming garage is locked or something's locked or bike is locked. I don't know. But yeah, that's one way to get through it. And if you have a cordless bolt cutter, hey, go for it. They're fun.
You're talking like a thing that has like a screw or something, and then it's like a shear. So is it screws, the shear pinches?
Nope.
Oh.
Just imagine a grinder with a cutting wheel on it.
Oh.
Like a grinder and a cutting wheel, except the wheel itself, instead of having that like half moon shape that protects it, let's pretend it has 75% of it protected. You just have a little slice of that pie out, and that's what cuts.
Okay.
Yeah, the padlock.
And then that just goes around the shackle or whatever and cuts it, the shackle?
Okay. Done.
Okay.
Because we had cuffs caught on a dude, and they were like, can't you use that? And I'm like, no, because this is designed for padlocks. Cuffs are way close to this guy's skin for me to try to stick this thing on it. So
if that thing would fit in there, then the cuffs wouldn't have been any good on the guy. They would have been
exactly. He would have gotten out of it. So I had to go in and actually cut the cuffs off using a cutting wheel on a grinder. And no matter how crazy a guy acts or says he is, 55,000 rotations a minute with something that cuts through stainless steel calms them right down.
Like, I'm not going to wiggle when you're doing
Mm-hmm. I'm crazy, and I can't be contained. You're not even going to bleed if you mess around, dude. It's just going to cauterize it as it cuts it off. All right, I'll be still. Yeah. I mean, I hate to sound like Kanye West, but I'm like, sometimes crazy is a choice.
But how about bypassing, picking, shimming for padlock?
Okay, of course I've picked them, a lot of them, and it just depends on what, name brand of the padlock is, how easy it is to pick. Shims, I haven't been very successful. I've done it, but it's like I wouldn't bet on me shimming that sucker. I'd bet on me picking it or cutting it off first.
You're thinking when you're saying shim, I'm thinking shim the shackles. So like a thing
Yep.
that kind of wraps around and you kind of
Mhm.
push those bolts or whatever they are in each of the shackles. But there's also shim where you just kind of shove like just a flat piece of metal up through the keyway and fiddle with the toggle at the end there. And depending on the lock, you can kind of push or twist or something and kind of bypass the
Well,
pins.
okay. When you use a shim, or you're not like American padlock, master padlock, that's not going to help breach the padlock from the inside. I can make a key. I can get the cylinder itself open if it's out of the lock by using the shim from the back in a blank. And as I stick the blank in, I'll stick the blank in, I'll stick the shim in from the rear, and I'll slowly wiggle them back and forth, and the shim would go in and drop. Separate the top pins from the bottom pins, and I'll be able to turn it and then take it apart and make a key from it. The thing that some companies make on the cheaper padlocks is they have a tool that slides through your keyway, comes out the back of the padlock, and can turn the don't even know the right word for it, actuator to unlock the padlock without actually turning the key.
Right. So essentially, the shim itself isn't going to have any torque to move the keyway or whatever. So this is like a tool that goes in and kind of applies the pressure, like you're saying, like a dead key would.
Yep.
But essentially, there's a couple of different ways on a padlock to get through it. If you got the time and it's worth, if the padlock costs $50 and it's going to cost you $75 to have a locksmith come out, you just got to do the math. But if it's an expensive padlock, or it's not going to cost that much to have a locksmith come out, then I think it's at least worth thinking about, because some locks are pretty expensive, and they're usually none of them are that hard to pick. I don't know. You've watched the lock picking lawyer guy.
Yeah. I laugh at it because every now and again a real actual locksmith shows up and they're like blah blah blah, and I'm like, look, bro, I'm a locksmith. This is what I do for a living. But I am not a professional picker. I'm like, that's totally different, dude.
That's like a race car driver and a tow truck driver. Like, I do this for a living, but this guy only drives in a left-handed circle, so he can do magic in a left-handed circle. But yeah,
that's it. This is this guy's hobby. He does it for fun. He does it. I mean, I don't know how
way
much
more than fun. He makes a fortune now, I bet.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He makes a living opening padlocks. Padlocks. He makes a living picking locks. Lock picking is like 5% of my job, if that. I'm like, that's cool. He can pick a lock. All right, cool. Have him generate a key for the ignition. Like, it's great. He got into it, but they lost the keys to it, Chief. I'm like, don't confuse one part. And it's cool part. Believe me, I'm watching them going, hey, that's cool. But anything I haven't been able to get into, I've been able to cut off.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, it's also really easy to do in a studio with a light with zero pressure.
Well, and when the lock is in the orientation to wherever you're fiddling with, but in reality, it's almost always like somewhere where you've got to adapt to it, and that makes another level of annoyance or complication or difficulty.
Well, one of my first times the first time I picked off a Kingston lock on a trailer. If you don't know, when a tractor trailer drops its trailer off, another tractor trailer can come hook up and drive off with it, unless you put a lock around, what's in there? In essence, a tow hitch on the bottom of it. Yeah. So it's a lock that actually goes around it, so you can't hook a tractor up to. Um, well, they lost the key. So now I'm underneath a trailer, and it's not tall enough for me to be on my knees, but it's short enough. It was like a weird position with your back bowed over, picking this thing over my face in the snow. I'm like, yeah, lockpicking lawyer is great. He's at a table with his dick. I'm like,
Well, and then it's also a clean lock that he took out of the drawer, out of the package or whatever. But it's a different reality when that lock has been out in the elements and weather, and it's all corroded and
covered.
junky and
No, covered in axle grease.
Yeah.
Covered in axle, like Cosmoline on a Mosin.
Well, that's actually probably better than it just getting exposed to the snow and shit and being all like grody.
Yeah. That's what I had to do. So I'm like, I look at the lock picking lawyer, and I'm like, awesome dude. I like, again, it's such a small percentage of what I do, but I am impressed by it, and I'm not a hater. But again, sitting here doing it with the light on is totally different than doing the field. With someone standing over your shoulder, making all the asinine comments you think someone would make. Hey, how much does this cost? Why don't you do this for a living? Why don't you break into houses? What's stopping you from breaking into houses? How long is this going to take? I'm in a hurry.
And that's they're telling you the excuses on, because I would, when I had to deal with restaurants, and I would be called in at like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m, whenever the manager's open in the restaurant, because I left their keys inside. And it was always like, I left my keys with the night shift, and the night shift left it inside. And I'm like, of course they did. Otherwise, you'd have been in here. Like, I know that, but you don't have, I'm getting paid. You don't have to apologize to me. I'm getting paid to be here. But
dude, the reason is always funny, right? It's always and I'm like, bro, I don't care. It's like, just don't think I'm stupid. And I'm like, it happens. It doesn't make you stupid.
Well, the thing is, for us, at least from my experience, it was always somebody else who locked them out, and it was the manager who had realized, I suppose, essentially, like, they didn't, whatever, or they broke a key off. And then the other thing would be just somebody would walk by during the night and destroy a back door or something, so that there was no way to get in. So we would just have to take the hinges off or something, get them in the back door.
Yeah, man, that's also one of the crazy things about what does a locksmith do? Well, when someone tries to break into your fill in the blank, and they break keys off in the lock, that's what I do. I have to remove the broken key, and then I have to figure out a way to get into your damaged door. I have to do all this, and then I have to replace what's broken and make sure your place is secure, before we can leave here.
I never actually thought about that, but I think that was because we weren't being paid enough to worry about that. But I guess, plus we weren't getting there first. The manager of the store would get there first, figure out it was broke into. We had this one that kept getting broke into, and it had a floor safe, a circular hole in the ground, and then they would come in and kick the shit out of the, whatever they did, smash around the dial, and break it, of course, but it won't open. That doesn't open it; it just breaks it. So then we would have to jackhammer the whole thing out, pull it out from the inside, take it off from the inside. You can take it, you can get the safe out from the inside, or the lid off from the inside, but then we'd have this hole in the floor, put the safe back in, cement it back in. And this one restaurant had the thing out probably 7 times. I probably pulled it out 3 times myself, pulling out my own repair. But that was the only way to get it back in and out. And, we'd have to buy a new safe head, $350. This was back in the 90s, but $350 every time somebody did that.
Yep.
That's essentially, it had nothing to do with anything cool, like safe cracking or anything. It was just jackhammering and then re-cementing in a safe every 6 months or every 8 months or whatever it was. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to have a locksmithing question come up. So I don't know if that helped or not, but it sounds like they already cut it.
Yeah.
But for me, if I got time, I'll sit there with the pick all day. If it's just at a friend's house or something, or nowadays, because I know they can be, and I'm not good, but sometimes it happens quick. But usually, if you sit there long enough, listen to the radio or having a conversation or something, when you least expect it, it'll just open up, and then saved yourself. You can have, you save yourself having to cut a lock, but ideally, if you have the key somewhere else, now you can still use the lock again. But anyway, what Woods is asking, what gun would Barbie carry?
Hmm.
I want to say like a CZ, but probably like a Smith and Wesson. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say a Springfield, whatever that new one is, Echelon.
In the Springfield echelon.
Yeah, that's a barbecue.
That's funny. Uh, I was gonna make a joke, and I still think I'm gonna do it. It would be better. What is this guy's name? The makeup guy that dresses like a woman.
Oh, that has Beretta made guns for him,
Yep.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, pink Beretta 92. Oh, that is horrible.
Oh, no, that's true.
Here it is. Here it is. Whose is this? I don't know. That kind. I think Barbie would have hers. Yeah, J Star.
All bedazzled and like diamonded out or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, because this isn't really that bedazzled. It's just pink, and I think it looks really good because so much work went. I mean, this actually came from Beretta. It's not something from somebody's NyQuil fever dream.
But that means like from an Italian style,
Mhm.
Italian, what's the word, like taste. Right?
Yep.
And then what they consider high taste or like, well,
Yeah, Jeffree Star. That's it, Jeffree Star. Yeah, pull that up. I think that's a really good looking firearm, just the way you did it, the presentation, everything. Yeah, Jeffree Star's 92 FS. Beautiful gun. And that's what I think Bobby would have, something like that. Because it wouldn't be regular. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be the, what do you call it? P365 Rose. It would be like more than that.
Yeah, right. Off the shelf or whatever.
Yeah, there you go.
And then it's in a little box and all that shit.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Gotta love it. I gotta love it that Jeffree Star, because I don't know Jeffree Star from a bucket of paint. But it's someone in the fashion industry. I don't know if he's trans or cross dresser or whatever, but it's good that that stereotype doesn't trick. Gun ownership is something he's into, and unapologetically, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And an ambassador, because I'm pretty sure when that whole Beretta thing happened, he was defending the gift.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, cool. Oh wow, Jeffree Star on Instagram, and it's got a picture of him with a pink AR. Not as banging as that damn Beretta. It has the pink M-Bus sights from Magpul.
Do they really make pink ones?
I don't know if they make pink ones. He had these done, and I mean, they look like them.
Well, the thing is, you can get tan ones and just dye them. It is porous, so you could probably dye them.
And see, I mean, I like stuff like this because it breaks up a stereotype. It busts up assumptions. You know what I mean? About those people. I'm like, I don't even know what this dude is, but he's into firearms. And if that person's an ambassador in a positive way, cool. Outside of that, don't know anything about him.
All right,
I'm jealous though. I'm jealous. She's got a gold 1911, dude. I just want to load up. What do you call it? A God of War loadout. I want an African warlord loadout.
Unapologetically saying Barbie would start off with a pink sky.
Sky, yeah.
Until she learned better. Some girls go with pretty first, education second. Well, true, but it's 2023, and Barbie's all about being, what's the words?
Hold on. Who makes this? All right. Time to get Jeffree Star out of my search history.
Forward thinking. But the whole movie is about her being like, not woke, but like, you know, leading the way for girls to do more than what they've been doing. So I think she would be more than.
Got it. Barbie would have one of the limited edition Canics, like fully loaded and jizzed up. Did you see the Miami Canic?
Oh wait, were you talking with the paint jobs where they have like the night and day 80s versions? Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think she'd have something. Because I believe in 2023, Barbie would be like before she made the purchase, she'd be like gun store Barbie, check the stuff out, She'd have, firearms instructor, Janet, her best friend, take her to the range and shoot different things. And she'd probably have a cool loadout, but it would be a custom gun by the time she's done with it.
Yeah, everything in the movie is, she's all pink. But there's different Barbies. That's sort of the thing. There's like a whole bunch of people in this world that are named Barbie, and they're all their own type of Barbie type of thing, and everybody's special.
Oh boy, man! Talk about launching right into the toy sales. Way to do it, baby.
But will they make Barbie gun stuff? I don't know. They make Nintendo stuff. They make that Lego one. Well, I'm just saying, like, will some Cerakoter make a Barbie one? I'm assuming they will. There's enough girls that like pink, right?
Yeah, and they got a Duck Hunt version. Somebody made a G.I. Joe Glock 34.
Oh, I haven't seen
it. and Mad Pig Customs, I love them, bro. They have a High Point C9 with Taylor Swift on
it. I saw a what is it? A John Deere painted up one, all green and yellow. It was kind of interesting. And then a Nerf one. I don't really like them like they do that, but people are going to do it.
Yeah, I like it when it's done because a lot of people, what about kids? Look, everybody doesn't have freaking kids, bro. And when was the last time your kid saw a Glock 34 laying around? Looking like, just stop. Stop inventing people to get hurt in gun accidents that don't exist.
Oh, exactly. And that's the perception. I don't know what the word would be, but like the self-prohibition due to perception that doesn't even have any, like real life. But anyway, so Woods is asking, does Indiana Jones use an M1917 in the new movie? What's an M1917?
It's an infill. It's a American infill in 30-06.
Oh, okay. So I cannot remember. I probably watched it like 3 times because I'm trying to understand why people like it, but I just can't pay attention. It's too long and boring. It's okay, but it's...
Well, what years is it taking place?
It's interesting because it starts out with World War II when, he melts his face in the first movie, or all those Nazis get their face.
Uh-huh.
It's like started off somewhere around there. I think right around in that area. So it starts off with like a flashback. Then it wakes up into the 60s when he's a teacher at school. And then you know what? Then they start playing with time travel. And it goes, I don't want to spoil it, but it goes all over time because they start playing around with time travel. Okay. And then it ends with, because this is the end of all of them. That girl from the first movie who was his girlfriend, kind of, and he meets up with her eventually. It like ends with him meeting up with her at the end. So I'm spoiling it. And, kind of resolves the whole story with him and his girlfriend and everything. So, anyway, so it's hard to say because it's kind of all over. It's about time travel. And they get consumed around in time.
My thing with Hollywood and M1917s is most Hollywood doesn't even recognize that as a World War I gun or the history it served in World War II. So I doubt it, mainly because it was the most issued rifle in the U.S. military during World War I because we already had it in production because we were making the 303 version for England. And when the war came about, we knew we were going to be shorthanded on the M1903s, so we just redesigned the M1917 to take 30-06 rounds. That gave us one extra round in the mag over the British. It had better sights. Like the Springfield didn't get those full-length rifle sights until Second World War. So it had a longer sight radius. It was slightly heavier. But when it came to taking pictures of it and putting out, because it was a foreign design, pretty much American military only took pictures of the Springfield, troops with the Springfield, and released it to the public.
That's cool. I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't know it from pop culture reference because if you look at World War I movies, the ones that are just on the surface and aren't really like historical, it's a Springfield. Even the story about what's his name, Sergeant York. They don't talk about him using the infill. Oh, he used an M1903 Springfield. No, he didn't use an infill. Because there were just so many of them issued. If York used a Springfield, he was the only one in his unit that had one because his unit was issued in 1970. I mean, that's how hardcore they were into not letting people know we were using this English designed.
Well, if we used them over there and left them over there, right, or gave them to whoever, after the
Mhm.
war, somebody got them over there, but they didn't come back here so much, and all the Springfields were sitting here, then it would also be we're sitting here holding all these Springfields. We assumed that's what they were using, kind of thing.
Well, what they did was put them in storage, right?
The Springfields,
So
yeah, the
someone, no,
Springfields were
no,
just hadn't gotten over there yet.
no, the infills. So
Oh,
what they happen, the infills come back with the troops. What they don't sell, give away, they put in storage. These things reappear for World War II because again, we're caught short. And England has a Lend Lace and they need rifles too. So what we did, because I have one, is we took them out of storage, painted a red band around the front near the bayonet lug, and scratched 30-06 into it and sent them over to England. And their home guard was actually issued these with 30-06 ammo.
oh,
So
okay.
in England, yeah, the home guard had 30-06 firing M1917s, and they had that red band around them so they wouldn't put the wrong ammo in. And I got mine. I bought mine back in the early 90s. But yeah, that's the story behind some of these guns. So they went overseas twice. My rifle went overseas twice.
When you're
Both
talking
World
about
War
the
One.
Home Guard, that was like all the old guys and whoever
Yep.
wasn't actually fighting in England. They would just be
Well,
kind of ready reserve back
they were
in.
like shore watch because we didn't have radar, on every beach. So they were doing that at the
Yeah, they were
beaches.
like
They're also,
volunteer Home Guard.
Mhm.
But
And they were also the
essentially,
ones that brought in some of the German pilots that were shot down during the Blitz. These were the guys that captured them, the
because
old
they
World
were
War One vets. Yep.
there in England or whatever. So
Hmm.
I was watching something, and they were saying that those guys, if they wanted to, they could request a Thompson. So a whole bunch of the Thompsons were grabbed by them because they could. And they
Yeah,
did.
why not?
Yeah, exactly.
I
So I'm
mean, it's
like, oh,
funny
that's pretty cool.
because, yeah, we think, oh, the old guys. I'm like, you do understand that if you were a 20-year-old in World War One, right, and the war ends in 1918, and you're like 22 years old, dude. 30 years later, I mean, 20 years later, you're in your early 40s, early to mid 40s. You're not freaking ancient.
For them, it's like older than us, but yeah, exactly. You're
Yeah,
just not young anymore. So there's young
yeah,
kids doing that part, but yeah.
yeah. You're an old dude. You've done your time. Like it's like when 9/11 happened, somebody asked, are they going to recall you? I'm like, as what? A tank? No, I'm a fat guy now. I'm not doing that.
I was a little concerned, but there was enough other people doing the stuff I ever did. But then after a while, because I know people, we used to
Hmm.
hang out with a guy who was an MP and he got grabbed back, but he
Yep.
was another probably 5 years younger. And again, it probably depended on what you did, because I knew
Well,
people that did some pretty interesting shit. And if they weren't in demand because they already had a bunch of them, they didn't need them
mhm,
again. So if you
yeah,
were happened to be some radar guy or you spoke some language, it didn't matter if you were fat, like you were going to go back.
yeah, yeah. You're going back.
But that was for like specific jobs, like again, like maybe to work some
Uh,
weather thing that was 60 years old and they didn't teach anybody new or something. There was like specific situations, but
yeah, I mean, I was thinking about signing back up because I mean, obviously, I served in the military. This horrible thing happened. I'm getting in. And then I realized, bruh, you got out for a reason. like, like we think about all the good times because, of course, you do. Who thinks about crappy times? I think about the friends, the duty stations, the fun, and not the really. You're older now. Like I understood people treating me like I was an idiot when I was 18, but now I'm like 30. Nah, nah, not happening. I'm not an idiot anymore. I'm asking why before I do anything. What is this? Yankee and appendix?
yeah, I don't know if we kind of covered this or not, but 500 earlier said Yankee was talking about appendix carry and how dangerous it is. I think Lethal Weapon made people think it's practical. Don't take advice from movies. Trying to remember. I've only seen that movie when it came out, so I'm thinking the one more reckless guy was probably the one appendix carrying.
Mm,
Um, I don't know. I mean, if it's been in movies, I'm sure it's to be perceived as more reckless. or like impromptu or whatever. But I'm sure they didn't ever mention it in a movie, any of the philosophy behind it or anything. I'm not sure where the. I think the new stuff is really just an evolution. Like the new interest in it is an evolution of people concealed carrying,
Mm-hmm.
and and then go into competitions of different kinds, and the weird hybrid of that. Like there was a structured hybrid of competition and defensive use a long time ago because there was just fewer competent people putting any effort into documenting it. But
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, anybody who feels like it can contribute to that conversation. And when you have a saturated situation like that, then you're going to have every permeation, I think, of anything happen, and then that means people who are like not averse, I guess, what's the word, like that might not necessarily be into it, but just don't hate it. Like they're going
Mm-hmm.
to be okay with appendix. But the thing is, really, for appendix, what do you need? Is there even special holsters for it? I guess now there is, but originally there wasn't even necessarily special
Nah,
holsters.
yeah.
It was just pushing your gun forward a little bit.
Yep. So I don't have a. Is this a specially built holster? I mean, it doesn't have the foot on it that pushes it out, but I got my belly that pushes the barrel out away from my body. And the reason I have it is because I am a fat bastard. And having it hooked to my side was getting in the way because I'm wide as a truck anyway. So it was hitting on everything. And I'm like, hey, why don't I put it in my center line and with a regular holster? Because what I have is the fat guy holster from JX Tactical, the fat guy, fat operator, something like that, which is goes deeper. It goes deeper. So the grip is near my belt line. Like the belt kind of bisects the grip itself. So I don't have a full master grip when I draw, which is also something
So it's
else.
kind of like partial. Well, it is
Yeah,
inside the waistband, but it's like some of those. What do you call it when it's a tuck? When you tuck your
yeah,
shirt in behind it, it's
like
like
a
a
super
halfway
tuck,
tuck. Yeah, it's like a
something like
halfway
that.
super tuck. Okay.
Yeah, so when people, oh, you have to have a master grip. I'm like, you know how many classes I've taken with this and how many times I've drawn? I've never dropped this firearm because I make sure I have a master grip before it completely clears the holster. But the initial grip, it has to be rear sight, two fingers, on a magazine, work my way around, and then I get the master grip. And the people that say something like, I have a 1.2 second to first shot draw from concealment. I'm good. I didn't make it up. I've practiced and I've trained, and really 1.23 was the one I documented on video. I've gotten faster. But before I make anything unsafe, I make sure I handle this and I practice. Yes, it's pointed at very important people parts. But regardless of what it's pointed at, and regardless of where it is, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, you want to make sure of your draw and make sure your fingers off the trigger. You have a good grip on the gun. Nothing changes except the location. The risk, sure, is maybe shooting myself, but the risk is always setting that gun off before it's supposed to be fired. I don't find that much of a difference.
I think the draw time is sort of like ballistic gel, where you use a draw timer and you draw and have the shot timer hear your
Mm-hmm.
shot go off, so that gives you a beep and an indicator of like how long your draw takes. I don't think you'd necessarily people are doing that in order to beat some theoretical like quick draw situation in reality.
Mm-mm, no.
As much as a way to gauge like their ability and
Yep.
gauge their skill set, in some sort of a criteria. Just
There's a
like
couple.
ballistic gel, you don't think a bad guy is going to be 73 inches of.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just doing that so that all your bullets can go into the consistent thing and you can compare them. And
Yeah,
whether or not that goes into an arm or a lung or a foot or whatever, it makes no difference because it's all going to be different in reality. It's just that for the testing and for comparison, you've got this consistency. So I think that people get hung up on people having a draw time and worrying about that or talking about it because
mm-hmm.
they don't know it. They don't think about it that way. They're not, they're thinking of it some other way. They're
Well,
whatever, usually
it,
thinking there's some kind of a game or some kind of like wannabe
Hmm.
vigilante or something, or maybe some kind of competition thing. Who knows what goes through somebody's head who's anti?
Well, well,
But
I've got friends that are anti-timer because in real life there's not going to be a beep, um,
right,
and it's a gaming thing and people game it, and I'm like, well, people game everything. It's how you seriously you take it, because this is two things. If you can't measure it, you don't have a standard to measure yourself on, whether you're fast or good. Here's the thing: most gunfights 3 feet 3 shots or something like that, but you still practice at 25 yards. You still practice at 15 yards. You still practice at 10, because the man has to know his limitations, as Clint Eastwood says. From someone holding up something and it's multiple people, he turns his head. Now, I watched John Correa, whether you want to believe him or not. He was like, when someone takes their eyes off you and turns their head away from you and then turns their head back, the time there, he put it down as like, if you have a sub 2 second draw, you can get the jump on this person, even though they have a firearm pointed at someone else. When they turn around to you, you have to know, can you get this out? Have you practiced drawing it? What is your time to draw? It's something that you can measure, and it's something you can know, not just guess at. So do I say make it like a pinnacle of your training? No. But you still should know how long it takes you to pull your garment out of the way, grab your firearm, pull it out, and get a shot on target. I don't think that's a crazy thing to know. I just don't think you should obsess on it.
well, it's unrealistic to think that you're just gonna know. Oh, I'm getting faster. I'm getting slower. Oh, that seems
Mm-hmm.
slow. That seemed faster. In reality, people may not realize what a shot timer is because they've never used one before. But the little beep thing, there's a computer in there, and the beep is created by the computer, and then it starts to listen immediately. And as soon as it hears your shot, it makes a note, and then sometimes it'll listen to 6 shots or something, and it'll make notes of all of those times you shot. There's different modes, so essentially it tells you when to draw. You do your thing, and then you pull the trigger, so it knows the duration. It knows how long it was between when it said go with the beep and then when your first shot went off. That's like mode one, like the easiest way to think of it. But
Mm-hmm.
it can also be a useful tool because you can tell it to beep randomly. So beep, and you're not going to know that it's coming. You're not pushing the button and expecting the beep. You know that it's going to come at a random time. So anyway, there's some ways that you can use a timer to calibrate your skill set, or to quantify your speed for your ability. And I think that there's, again, for just your, whatever you want to call your own metrics or your own analytics, just so you know
Mm-hmm.
where you're at. And that way you can go, hey, you know what? I'm sick, or I feel like shit this week, or I was doing a lot of yard work, or playing with the dog too much, and my time suffered. But now I know why, and I can anticipate that. And now I know that in reality, if I'm to need to use these skills at a time when I'm not at my best, I know where my parameters are, or whatever. I know how fast and how slow I get. But it also just lets you know if you're on your ups or if you're on your downs or where you're at. So nothing different than listening to your heartbeat or looking at the time when you were riding your bike or taking a walk. Okay, I'm going to walk for 40 minutes. Oh, I did that trip in 30 minutes. I must be in better shape than I thought. Or I was going to take that trip and it took me an hour today instead of 40 minutes. Wow, I'm still exhausted. Like, maybe I'm need to work on this or something. It's just that kind of an approach to this skill set. Maybe it's the same as recording yourself when you're playing the guitar and listening to it, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
just listening to yourself play in live all the time and assuming you're getting better. It's a way to monitor. So anyway, I think that um, uh, the idea of, I guess we started this thing with appendix carry. I think the idea that people who practice their draw time or suggest that the draw time is quicker, it's just the idea that it's not a. I think what they're really doing is justifying the perception that it's a disadvantage to have the gun up in front of you, that it's either going to take longer to draw or somehow whatever. And I think that's one of the things that people think that somehow that matters. I mean, yes, if lightning's going to strike and you're going to have to use your firearm, what are those odds? And then what are the odds that it's going to be some kind of quick draw situation? I don't know if John Lott's actually done the math on that, but it has to be a fraction of a fraction that's so small I can't even imagine. I suspect most people that ever have to use a firearm have plenty of time to do that. There's not, except for in movies, there's not very often at all, if ever, where somebody's, going to have to draw and use a firearm that quickly.
Well, I believe 100% you get to diminishing returns about when something's going to happen. You know what I mean? And then some of it is obvious. Like one of the podcasts I do is self-defense gun stories. And we do 4 stories that happened in the, recently with civilian armed self-defense. And very few of them is a quick draw contest. Some are, but I'll go, again, we do 4 per show, maybe 1 out of every 2 shows. And that's because we're going through finding them, looking for different stories. And maybe you'll have something that someone has to draw because the person already has the firearm out. The bad guy already has a gun pointed at somebody. Mostly it's someone threatening, and you have time, and it doesn't have to be a quick draw. My thing is this: if you're carrying for that low percentage, then you might as well just get all the training in for the things that can happen. So you practice malfunction drills. You know what I mean? You practice drawing from concealment just to find out how long it takes and get better. Because again, if you can't measure, you don't know if you're getting better at it or not. You work on your accuracy. Again, 3 feet, 3 shots, but you still practice at 7 yards. You still practice at 10. You still practice at 15. Some people, it starts falling off after you get past that. Some people practice at 25. Me, I just like shooting guns. So yeah, I have no problem shooting at 50, and I'm not going to flinch. And I've taken it out pistol shots to 200. And again, same principles that apply at 7 apply at 200. But I like the marksmanship aspect and the challenge aspect. I do not plan to be shooting completely across a Home Depot at someone. It's not why I'm doing that. So
Plus, if you got to go across the whole Home Depot, I would shoot at like a shovel, maybe a third of the way across, and bounce off a wheelbarrow or something like 3/4 the way, and that would pick up the speed.
Nice. But I mean, it's like there's nothing wrong with preparing for the worst day of your life being an actual worst day, because as I say in the military, bad things happen in threes. It's just not one bad thing. It's like this bad thing and this bad thing and this bad thing all came together at one time. I mean, think about what, Pearl Harbor? It's like, yeah, we had all the ammo locked up. Oh, and we had all the planes lined up wingtip to wingtip, and we just turned the radar off. And that happens to be the Sunday the Japanese showed up.
And we lost track of their fleet.
Yeah, couldn't find it. So, yeah, bad things happen. So nobody's to say that you're going to have that great day where you woke up before the alarm clock went off, got in a great workout, had a solid breakfast, and then you got involved in a self-defense shooting, but you was on point. No, it's just maybe a crap day. And it turns into this.
Well, in reality, right, like you're saying, like when you're on point, you're all 100%, focused on what's going on and everything. Is that the time when you're going to get yourself into a situation where something happens, or is it when you're half sick, or you're getting better, you're getting sick? Somebody else you're dragging 2 backpacks instead of just the one, and you're worried about something that's about to spill, and all of a sudden you realize you're getting carjacked. And you know what I'm saying? Like, that's more the reality when you're not realizing it's even happening, or all of a sudden you're walking around the corner and there's something happening in front of you where you've got to make a decision. Your hands are full, and there's a kid, dog, spouse, friend, just talking on the phone, walking into the danger, and you've got to stop them and react and hope that your appearance there didn't cause all kinds of other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get to choose this stuff.
Not at all. Not at all. So, and also, again, there's the firearms industry that's out there, trying to sell training, trying to sell self-defense insurance, trying to sell the new holster. So there's motivation out there for people to tell you to train, to tell you to do this stuff. But everybody's not a shill. Some people like me, I don't get paid for these podcasts I do, but I want people to be prepared to protect themselves and their family to the best of their ability. And that sometimes includes knowing how to run your stuff and having knowledge of your abilities. Don't just assume that you know how to do it, because I've watched a lot of these guys and you've seen them, you've been to enough ranges. Oh, I know what I'm doing. And then they don't even know how to load the handgun.
I think my experiences from the early 2000s, and when instruction wasn't new or nothing, what was new was like they were pretty well established as the traveling instructors, and they were actually kind of ramping up because of the global war on terror, and the units that were able to request training were requesting these guys, mostly guys, all guys, and they were getting more and more familiar and able, and their classes were getting better because of it. But anyway, so the people that would show up back in those days were a lot of people on the clock, like already people that were up training, doing some kind of skill building for their job. They were, some kind of badge or some kind of sworn something. So they already had some competency. But you're right, there's always a range. But these are people that were doing their own training. So these are people that were more paying attention than, they weren't there because they had to be at all. So, but then you had a lot of software people at the time, people in tech business up in Phoenix and in Tucson that would show up at these courses, because I was always going to Arizona courses. And those guys would pay for the classes where the law enforcement would also pay. So like the stuff was getting funded by the software people and that. And after a while, they all got up to speed, but they definitely came in at different levels of competency. And like some of them were visitors, some of them were spectators. And then there'd be the ones that were like, I didn't enlist, or I didn't do any kind of a job that requires this stuff, but I'm super interested. And I mean, I can pay to take the same classes literally with cops and military people. Like that was literally what was happening. And that was super interesting, because while they may not be up to speed, it's not like what am I trying to say? It's not like basic training or something where the drill instructor's yelling at you. It was the opposite. It was like very fostering and coaching environment, and getting people up to speed. And there was very few people fumbling around. And I guess I shouldn't say never. There was a couple of times when somebody just wasn't up to speed. But essentially, then the instructors would just say, "Hey, look, we're all running, at this on 10 speeds. You need us to not, I'm just using an example. You need a tricycle class or whatever. We're going to do that for you tonight at 6. And if you can catch up tomorrow, then come back. Otherwise, we'll do an evening class. So you'll get what you paid for. We'll just do it separately than the rest of these guys, because they're just at a different level." And that did happen once with some people that brought revolvers and, thought they were showing up for like a basic pistol class when they really showed up for more of like doing more stuff with lights and stuff, kind of a class with handguns. So instead of, I'm saying the instructor was able to just say, "Hey, you know what, let's accommodate you in a different way, so that, we're not, tying up everybody with this and keeping you trying to go faster than you feel comfortable with." But anyway, the people that, and I haven't taken training since, really. So all the training that I did was back in those days. So I suspect nowadays, and think of back then, I can't, I don't know, it's a while ago, but if you think of back then, I don't think there was too many people getting into guns as adults. It must have been happening, but not anywhere near as much as today. So I can only assume the training environments today are a totally different thing, because of that spectrum of people who are like fairly new or brand new with firearms, and then people that are, some level of experienced, and then the ultimately experienced who are, there to experience whatever they're going to get out of it. So, or maybe just they're instructing, so I can't imagine how different the training is. It would actually be kind of interesting to go experience some classes. I don't even know who I'd want to go train with nowadays.
Well, I started training on the civilian side 2010, 2012.
Okay.
And I watched it change. Like I started training, and then I took my NRA classes in 27 to become an instructor. And the guys and ladies in the class were there. Like half was like, yeah, I need this certification so I can teach, my kids, grandkids for the Boy Scouts. That was a significant number of the people in class. And the other part of the class worked at the range I was at to be instructors at the range that teach people NRA basics. Now, more and more people are taking, I'm not going to say tactical classes, but it's not NRA basic, it is defensive classes. That has changed with the number of people taking it, like the purpose of it. That's what I see it as. Other people, hey, I just want to know how a firearm works. I just want to be safe with it. And now it's turned into, yeah, I need this for self-defense. I need this to defend my family. I think that thought process has changed, and those people have changed. I watched the people coming to me for training. It was interesting. And then it was, yeah, I need to be able to defend my husband, my wife, my family. I want my kids to know how to safely use a firearm if they have to use one. But I also want to take the stigma away, but I want to do it in a safe manner. So you come to an organized class like ours and you shoot and you learn to shoot. And then you see, of course, we had the diversity shoot that your kid come out and participate. And then also had, at the same time, I had the Minuteman Challenge. So I had things set up for people that were interested in taking up shooting as an interest and as a sport, but also defensive use. And it opens that doorway to allow you to meet other people. And I think you have a lot more of that now than you did back then.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, right? You say 2010, that's probably a good, I would say, a pivot point where before then, and this is just from my experience hanging out at the gun shop from like 2004 to 17. So I'd say somewhere around 10, 12, 9, 10, 12, somewhere in there. Because we were all going to these different training classes and stuff. I would audit them and review them. So it was possible for me to go to a lot of them that I couldn't have afforded to go to if I was paying for them. So, and some of the other guys were either paying or auditing also to experience as much as we could. So our passion was like every time somebody come in to buy like a 9mm, blah, 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 because of whatever reason, right? Because back in that era, people weren't concerned about, oh, I'm afraid of the collapse of society. It was more like somebody broke into my house, or there was a bobcat when I was running the other day, or I was on my bicycle and I seen a javelina and I'm scared. Something like, just regular old stuff that people might decide to buy a gun for. Occasionally, like my ex-husband, has been calling and creeping me out, so I'm getting a shotgun, those kind of things. But essentially, back in that 10, before 10, let's say, we would have been saying like, please get some kind of training. There's all these instructors of different levels, different calibers or whatever in town. And, you can get something from as little as, $100 with some basic idea of like awareness and, just being head on your swivel kind of thing, to some practice on an open range out here in the desert or something with somebody who knows what they're doing. And you actually pull from a holster and, get some actual, awareness of how your skill set is, in a situation, and that was kind of still new. And that was something that people would go, yeah. But now, like you're saying, I think that's when people go to buy a gun, their next question, or they're like, I need a gun, I need ammo, I need a holster, and some kind of training like I just described, right? Like that's just part of the package now, where back before 10, that was available. It was kind of new, but it was definitely established. But it was, again, trying to sell ice to people who live in Alaska.
Yeah.
They'd look at you funny, like, I don't need training. I just bought a gun. Like, I just bought a gun. I'm done now. And, what are you going to do? Like, okay, you're right. You do have a gun now, but it's not magic.
It was so frustrating, like going, yeah, but you can't hit it. Like you're celebrating every time you hit paper at 3 feet. Like, you're not, because.
Well, and then when you were taking your like little sister to the range because there was nothing else to do, or she wanted to join you, or like your little cousin wanted to tag along and they were hitting paper, yeah, awesome. But it's a different thing when it's your daughter or your friend who's going off to be a single student at a place out of state, and you're concerned and they want to bring something with them, and yeah, you want to make sure they're at a level of competency that they're not just like foolish with it and that they're competent with it and they know their level of competency. And that's something that was available back then, but nobody was really, there was no motivation to worry about it. Now there's this awareness. I don't think people are paranoid or anything. I think there's just this awareness, and it's like, just like you're going to buy a cleaning kit and just like you're going to buy a lockbox, those things weren't necessarily right on the top of everybody's list back in the day. You know, oh, I'm going to throw this thing in the sink and I'll wash it with soap and water. I'll spray
Dishwasher
it
for the
with
Glock.
spray. Yeah. Because, people were looking at it more like a tool. Now they're looking at it more like, I'm going to buy this thing and I'm going to pay more attention to it and I'm going to, buy things that are appropriate for it. All right. Well, I don't know. Maybe we're just rambling, but that's sort of what we do is we give you the old mansplaining opinions of back in the day. I don't know if we covered that one. Did I cut you off on anything? Is there more to say on that one? We're 90 minutes in.
One thing I talk about, you do not 100% need tactical training to be able to use your firearm defensively, but you should be able to hit a target consistently and operate your handgun safely or firearm safely without putting other people at risk. And one way to pick all of that out, including learning self-defense law and other things, is to actually take a formal class. I'm not saying you can't defend your homestead without having one, but the more you learn, the more you figure out what you don't know.
Yeah, if we're going to advocate for classes, I'll throw in there a couple of things. If you're by yourself sitting here listening to the internet and you're interested in firearms and you're wondering how to find other people that are like-minded in reality, not just on the internet, then go into a class or go into a diversity shoot or go into like a match, like an indoor match at a local range or even an outdoor match at a local range is definitely an excellent introductory step. You're going to go interact with other people. You're going to see how essentially the community works, whatever it is, the sport or the event or whatever, you'll get the hang of it. And they're pretty much similar around the country. So if you start to see something that you dig, you'll know that there's versions of it. If you like the sport, maybe there's a similar one with a shotgun, or there's a similar one with a cowboy gun, or there's a similar one with, a backup gun or something that you could also enjoy. But so you're going to get some experience with meeting people, right? You're going to get out there and you're going to get experience with your firearm, but you're also going to meet people in the area. So I think training is good for, more than just the actual benefit, the knowledge you're going to get from it. Mm-hmm. Once you experience, I think it's like learning a musical instrument too. You might have got the guitar because you like rock and roll. But when you look at rock and roll, it comes from bluegrass and it comes from jazz and it comes from other elements. So once you own a guitar and you're able to do rock and roll, once you've got a gun and you're able to shoot, holes inside of holes at the range, now let's talk about when strategically you're going to draw. And when you draw, what kind of things are going to impede that? Maybe it's a piece of clothing, or maybe it's the way you're sitting, or maybe it's the amount of time you have to react. So by creating drills and things, you can give yourself some challenges, beyond just shooting marksmanship style hole inside of a hole, or hole inside of a hole as fast as you can, or, some sort of, I'm going to draw and change my magazine real quick or something. So, you can give yourself more opportunity, like more skills, more drills for creating more skills, which, you can go look at these things, but have an instructor who knows them, give them to you. It's part of the process of going to a class. And then you can get some coaching. Everybody thinks they're so good, but you don't know anything because you're one person with one point of interest. You don't have any experience. I don't care who you are. You don't have any experience. So someone who's a coach or an instructor has seen dozens and dozens of people on a weekly, monthly, whatever basis. So hundreds, if not thousands of people, and they're going to see trends and techniques. And, they're just like there's left-handed people and right-handed people. So the instructor is going to understand that left-handed people aren't going to want to do this because the brass is going to hit them in the face, or right-handed people don't know about that, right? They're going to know all kinds of things, like people that have this eye, like glasses. People that wear glasses are different than people that don't. What do you? Or you wear glasses or not? Like, guess what? You probably don't think about the other people because nobody thinks about other people than themselves. You know who does? Coaches, instructors, because they're paying attention to other people constantly. So that's the kind of stuff where when you're an individual and you think you got it all figured out, you go to a class and you realize, oh, there's somebody else who can help me, go further than I can on my own. So I just want to throw a couple, and I got others, but I think those are some other reasons why, even if your shit's so good and you don't have to worry about your skill set and you know all the techniques, like there are things that you're going to get from a course, from a class, like attending it, that are, bigger, or, more than just that skill set or whatever. Oh, and then I was also going to throw in there, you're helping the community, the economy of our community, which may or may not be critical, but it's always a necessary, and keeping our money inside of our community is never a bad thing. So, that's another way to keep another small business in your community going. And while you may not need it, think about all the people that will need it next week or next month. And by you taking a seat in a class or auditing a class and helping them get the word out, because I still think that's useful. If they appreciate it, they'll see what I'm talking about. But if you can help that place stay in business a little bit longer, then that's an aid to the community that you could have just sat there and done nothing and watched them go out of business.
True.
Anyway, so that's a bit of my lecture, a little bit of mansplaining. Patriots asking rookie question: what's the difference between service grade ammo and range ammo?
What's service grade ammo?
Well, I'm thinking service grade would be like M855 or whatever the government issues to people. So they're going to have match grade, and they're going to have regular, and they're going to have tracers. They're going to have a variety. But whatever the standard ball ammo is, I'm considering that service grade. So that's going to have some consistency for accuracy and some consistency for its effective use downrange. So if it's actually the stuff that's in service, then it's going to be, the reason we buy XM855 cheap is because that's the stuff that didn't pass the test to be M855. X means didn't pass the test, it got disqualified. So M855 is our service grade ammo. So that means it's got the projectile that the government requested, it's built to spec, and it passed all the quality inspections. So you essentially can say, this is the kind of ammo that I would pay a premium for, at least a normal price where I wouldn't expect it to be at a discount necessarily. But then I could expect to put this ammo on the shelf for long-term storage so that my grandkids have it in case they need to be every blade of grass type of shit. Or I could take it to the range and know there's going to be decent consistency with it without, a little bit less than match grade. Where I'd say range ammo is 3 steps down from that. That's your XM855, where it didn't, it's built to be good, but it's all sloppy, or it didn't pass whatever test. So it's, it's going to be in the 8 ring, but, service grade is going to be in the 9 ring. Match grade is going to be in the 10 ring. I think range ammo, you're paying a lot less for it. So you can actually get out there, practice your manipulations, practice your, your other things besides just pulling the trigger, or just your accuracy, I should say. All the other stuff involved with pulling the trigger. Maybe if you're going to be fixing a gun or something, you're going to use range ammo to just, diagnose a problem with a scope or something, and then use your match ammo to actually sight it in. So I think your range ammo is like your least expensive. It's built to be safe, but it's like the cheapest ingredients and the stuff that you're going to use probably 80% of the time for playing around and just, practicing when it doesn't matter. You're just trying to get softball size hits instead of golf ball size hits out there. At least that's my definition. I don't know. There might be a more accurate, like an actual definition, like from ANSI. No.
What, Sammy?
Sammy.
Yeah. I agree with what you said. Then if we're talking about, service ammo, it's the service grade. I think that's definitely it. Range ammo works, doesn't work, is inconsistent with the powder burns. If you watch somebody that actually measures ammo, like Paul Harrell, and he does the velocity test, you can see the difference. Sometimes when he uses self-defense ammo, which I would call service grade, ammo 100% meant to be carried and used for self-defense. When you look at the velocities of it, the difference between the velocities is a lot smaller than when he uses just full metal jacket training ammo. let's say you're using 45 ACP and it's range ammo. You can see the feet per second of the round going down range fluctuate like 60 to 150 feet per second. Depends on how inexpensive the ammo is or how it's loaded. But when you start talking about self-defense ammo, you start to watch those numbers shrink between like single digits and like maybe up to 50 feet per second. Like it just shrinks, that variation, because it's the consistency of the load, and also the projectile itself is usually totally different. With service grade ammo meant for self-defense, meant for hunting, the projectile itself is built different to open consistently at the speeds that this thing was designed to work with. And again, range ammo is usually full metal jacket ammo, not meant to be opened up at all, not to expand. I'm sorry. It's not to expand at all, like self-defense ammo is designed to expand, or hunting ammo is designed to expand when it hits something. So I think that's the difference in between. Its consistency, its cost, it's how it's constructed. All of that enters into it.
Yeah, exactly. And then what you'd use it for, right? Because of the kind of bullets you're talking about.
Yep.
But in a pinch, ball ammo, save World War I and II. So.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this one because it needs to be said. They all fall to hardball. It is not premium at this point. It is not what you look for, but it still works. It's still a 230 grain bullet moving at like 800 feet per second. It's got some move, get out my way energy to it.
I think earlier when we were talking about Barbie's gun, Patriot, it said Barbie would just have a safety whistle. That's the thing, though. I mean, she seems like in the movie or whatever that she's like aware. She seems like she would definitely have a firearm and defend herself. She wouldn't be scared or be like, defaulting to pacifism, I guess. I think she would immediately. It just seems like she's got a backbone in the movie. I didn't see the whole movie. I skipped. I watched the beginning. I thought it was a musical because they started singing, and then I can't handle musicals. I won't watch those, so I skipped forward a bunch and then watched a bunch of it. And it was like I say, it was a kind of like Time Cop, like it's a weird movie or what. I mean, what it is. That it wasn't there a Bugs Bunny movie or something where Bugs Bunny or no Roger Rabbit comes into regular. It's kind of like that. Anyway, so I skipped forward. I kind of get the gist of the movie, but I didn't see the whole movie. But anyway, it did seem like she wasn't like a ditz Barbie who's just walking around clueless or nothing. All right, so CNT is saying range ammo is safe and good enough to operate your firearm, but not something you want to bet your life on. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, so my whole thing is buy good range ammo. Never know when there's a pinch. It's always funny to me when people talk about I'm going to get ammo for poop hits the fan, and then when you look at what they buy training ammo.
Well, so I think you're having a lot. Like I'm calling Winchester white box. I'm assuming that's still around. That's training ammo. It's just very inexpensive as far as things go. It's not maybe the cheapest. I think the cheapest would be aluminum case or something. But
now Winchester has their steel case garbage.
Yeah, okay. So even something like that, whatever you'd consider like the bottom of the line ammo, that's what I'd want in the shit hits the fan in situation for trading, for bartering. Because you want to barter with not the best stuff because who knows where it's going. And then I'd want to be able to barter some once in a while. Or if you needed to cache or cache, having something that's not all that critical, I guess, let's say, or like, putting all your resources into it. So I could see it for something like that. But yeah, you're right. It's, like you said, you wouldn't want to bet your life on it. But on the same token, I mean, most 7.62 is steel, so it depends on the right application. It does,
Most 7.62 by 39 is steel, but it's designed to shoot out of guns that take steel. They were designed to shoot steel.
Yeah, different guns completely.
Yeah, because anything I shot, dude, I hate that Winchester. I'm like, I'd rather get Wolf steel case than the Winchester steel case.
Yeah, I would think something like that would be good for an older, I'm assuming, sloppier gun, or just a well-used sloppy gun? I don't know if high points have slop in them, or are they real tight, like a 45?
My high point doesn't rattle as much as a 45 since I took the magazine disconnect out. It's not super tight, but yeah, it's tight. It's not slop, but
so it wouldn't deal with steel either. Then it wouldn't be.
Yeah, it takes steel. It ejects steel. It's just much harsher. You can feel the difference in when you shoot it.
Okay. And part of it is like just it's hard to explain, but I don't know what to call it. Like it's not the dwell, I don't think, but like I would assume the friction of the case that expands or not being pulled out of the chamber. One, it's going to have a different speed, so maybe that is dwell, but just a different momentum. I don't know what the word is, but like when brass, it expands, but it also lets go. So when the ejector yanks on it, it's like okay. But steel expands and is like, okay, I live here now. Now that ejector's like, let's go. And there's a big fight that goes on there for a while. And
oh, dude.
That's going to take some time, right?
It's such a big fight. Oh, my goodness. I got some Herder's steel case that I got from someone. The guy said, yeah, it's not working in my guns. Well, I know what I'm doing. I have a high point. So I picked his up and, I had the high point. I had the CZ. And I think I had the high point carbine. That thing locked up all of those firearms: the Glock, the CD, the high point, the carbine. I actually had to send the carbine in to get a new barrel put in it. That steel case would not let go. Like I was like, wait a minute, I can't even unlock the gun. Like the CZ, I actually had to take it to the gunsmith at the range. I'm like, thing won't unlock. It fired. It didn't eject. I can't get it out. Took it to the gunsmith. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm not shooting this in the CZ. Maybe the CZ has too tight of specs. Now, understand, my CZ75 is a police trade-in from like 1990. So it's had rounds through it. It's not like it's brand new out of the box, right? Then I put it in my Glock 19. Locked it up. Had to take it to the gunsmith. And by the time I got to the high point, the gunsmith looked at me like, hey, dude, it's the ammo. He's like, it's the ammo. You can throw it away right here. I was like, okay, thank you.
And what was that? That was
It was a horrible lot of Herder's ammo.
Oh, interesting.
And
so it probably came from Russia. It's not like they're making it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was garbage. It was really garbage. And the guy said, I've used it before. It was just this particular lot. He was like, it's messing up my firearms. And I'm like,
if we got like a bad lot over in, fill in the brain country that made it, and then they're like, hey, we want to buy some for Ohio or whatever. They're like, oh yeah, we got just the box for you there, country.
Yeah, right.
On the other side of the planet, no problem.
My whole thing was like, I'm not trashing the line because, see, the reason is it's not like I went into it blind. No, because by the time I purchased this, I already had multiple training classes as an instructor. I've taken classes as a student. And we've been hosting we've been hosting the diversity shoot and doing the Minuteman Challenge. So it's not as if I hadn't had a plethora of ammo come through my hands. You know what I mean? Reloads, steel case from Wolf, steel case from, who's the other one? Red Army, like all of it. Nothing's been a problem. So why should this be a problem, man? That was a problem. It's like, why should this be a problem? Yeah, okay. So yeah, it is what it is. Wow, look at the poll.
Yeah, I ended it because it wasn't even going to come close. So which camp? We got the Klovenheimer or the 2A for Barbie. And looks like neither, 71%, both only 4%. So I don't think too many people are catching the fever to watch these movies this weekend.
Yep. Oh yeah, I'm seeing this about again, like I said, these particular guns, I'm just finishing up my review on the high point 9mm carbine, the 995 that I have. I've written it for over, I think I've had this gun for like 6 years. So let's just call it a long-term review. And it's eaten everything except that one box of Herders. Like you name it, we've shot it. We've shot the synthetic ammo, you know what I mean, with the synthetic projectile from Federal. Anything that's out there, we've shot through this thing, except hollow points, because I'm not wasting my money on that. That's not why I got it, so I'm not going to pretend, you know what I mean? I'm not going to pretend I tested this to be a self-defense firearm, and I'm not putting 100 rounds of freaking hollow points through this just to tell you that it works or doesn't work. Like, I'm not even going to try to defend that. Figure it out or
no. Woods is saying his Ruger PC9 seems to eat anything. I've put different ammo in the same mags just to see. Imagine he's saying like staggering them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Steel case, green box, white box, way off brand, ate all of it. I guess that's one of the, what would you say, like characteristics that Rugers pretty much always have had. That they're, I don't know if it's their tolerances or just the quality of the design. They're overbuilt for sure. I think they got a lot of metal on them compared to like a Colt. Smith & Wesson's kind of in between. But in generalities, I think Ruger's one of the beefiest guns out there. Like, they're not as scared to leave metal on the gun. Now, probably great if you're an engravist because you got all this material to work with and you can get some really deep engravings that way. And it's great for overkill. Like, you're not going to drop a Ruger and worry too much about it breaking. Well, it's most of them. Like, they're going to break the sidewalk. But then, I mean, I guess I don't think I've ever heard of maybe some of those little nines for a minute there in the kind of that same time we were talking about the late 2000s when the 380 was kind of dying because all the little 9mm were being made and kind of just onslaught of concealed carry and everybody wanting 9mm when they were first making these little single stack 9mm. I think one of those little Rugers was finicky, but I'm only recollecting because most, and that was the only reason I can remember it is because almost every other Ruger will just not have any problems. I mean, what problems do Rugers have other than people say they look ugly? I mean they don't ever not.
Ruger has had some recalls.
Oh, they have? Okay.
Yeah, they have had some recalls, but they're solidly built guns. They're overbuilt guns. A lot of the stuff they do, especially with their metal guns, was casting. So it was a lot more metal. You know what I mean? A lot more metal used.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more metal used, and a lot more metal left there. And it's just you got a Ruger. You knew you weren't getting a lightweight gun.
Yep.
Rugers aren't. I was talking about it on the show, and I'm talking about where Ruger stood. It's like, you know, even though Ruger did enter the 1983, I think, competition for service pistol, I think they did enter the same one as the M9. But for the most part, that's not what they were. Now, I don't know if it was written, but you know, because I'm a geek about this stuff. Like, Ruger is that if you're a armed security guard and you have to buy your own firearm, like Security 6 was kind of built for you. You know what I mean? Security 9 is another one that it's a good duty firearm, but it is not, you know, a Colt Python. It is not a 686 from Smith. But it is a solid duty gun that will get you there, that'll fire rounds, to be accurate, but it's not a collector's item. It's not that gun that's going to be issued to the air crew. It's just what is what it is. And I think Ruger knew their customer, and they know they want something built solidly. They want it at a decent price. It doesn't have to be the cheapest thing made, but they're not going to spend Smith & Wesson and Colt prices. They just want a gun that's good. And Ruger did it.
Like a ranch and all the things you said, but like a ranch too, like farm type of work and that kind of thing. Like, yeah, you're not going to want like a fire extinguisher. You don't want a gun that you only expect to ever use a few times, like a very inexpensive gun. And you don't need to you don't need to overkill and buy a bunch of fancy, delicate, intricate, or fancy. You just need it to be a tool. And that's where Ruger fits in, I think.
And I don't think anything's wrong with that.
No, not at all.
And when you look at Rugers, even now, people are like, oh, why does it have a safety? Because a lot of the time, those people who use those firearms like that, in their mind, it's not safe unless it has a safety. Well, I'm not. You want to re-educate everybody, or just give them what they want? Okay, fine. I'm not going to teach you anything here. Here's a Ruger semi-automatic polymer striker-fired pistol with a safety on it, because that's what you want. And we also will call the other line a pro line, and it won't have a safety on it. And we'll add high-vis sights. See? Good to go.
Yeah, I haven't paid that much attention, but that is true. Like, no matter what they started with, they usually adapt to whatever other, so like you said, with a safety, without a safety.
I
If
actually
somebody
talked to
really
the
wanted
president.
safety, they put one on eventually.
Yeah, I actually talked to the president of Ruger about that at SHOT Show in 2020, and I asked him, I'm like, I know why I assume it, but can you explain it to me? And pretty much that's what he said. Our customer base wants safeties, so we give them safeties. And for the people that don't want a safety, wait a minute and we'll put one out without the safety on it and call it the Pro variant. And that's exactly what they do. I'm like, okay, cool. At least I know now. Wish I would have recorded that one, but it was just a conversation. I saw him when I was standing in line waiting to go shoot something. And I was like, either I could talk to the president of Ruger or I could stand in line and shoot like 10 rounds of 9mm through something. I'll talk to the president of Ruger.
Well, we're 2 hours in. This Rhodes is saying his EC9 is the one I think I was talking about, where he said it's finicky, but all of them just work. And Barbecue was saying that when he was doing security, they had a P95.
Yep. Old school P95, baby.
Yeah, I really liked them. First ones that I could afford, or first ones, I don't remember anymore. They weren't the first ones with ambidextrous, but they were the first that I could get my hands on with ambi. And I thought that was the coolest shit ever back in the day.
Yeah, but
they had both disconnect, because they had like a hammer drop or whatever it's called, and the what am I trying to say? The slide, whatever you want to call it, disconnect, slide stop. Side drop or side stop, whatever you want to call it, that was on both sides, if I remember right. And what am I trying to think of? It's been a while since I've even had to say it. When you pull the lever and it drops the hammer.
Decocker.
Holy moly. I know about guns. Trust me. I remember guns.
Yeah, trust me. Yeah, it happens, especially when you have a lot of terms wrapped around. See, I'm only like months older than you, but my whole thing is you bought the guns and I read about the guns, so there's a huge difference. So of course, my thing is, oh my goodness, the P85, and then the rest of them that came along after that, the 89 and the rest of them that came along was kind of cool, but that was just me reading about them, wishing I had them, and then I didn't get my hands on some of these firearms. Understand, in Jersey you can't touch a gun unless you have a firearms ID card. So that puts you in the Ixnay, you ain't touching nothing a category in the gun store. So I didn't start seeing these till I went to a Gun for Hire range. And at Gun for Hire, they had these as rental guns. So I got to go behind the counter whenever I went up there for a diversity shoot. And whenever I went up for a diversity shoot, I went up and took some pictures of the different rental guns, because they have over 200 rental guns. And I just wanted to take pictures of interesting ones to get people, come to the range and try it out. One of them was P95. Oh my goodness, that trigger pull is long as you start pulling the trigger on like Tuesday and the gun goes off Thursday night. I'm like, man, this is rough. This is what I was, jonesing over as a kid. Right. It's just funny because, again, this is as someone who was reading guns and ammo when I was in the 5th grade. I had a subscription to, was it NRA, American Rifleman?
Yep.
Like I was that kid, and I read them until the pages fell out of the magazine. So that was my thing. And then as an adult, as a firearms instructor, as someone that see new guns multiple times a month, I'm like, wow, some of the old guns really sucked. Like, it's just a lot of nostalgia attached to them.
I mean, you could go in back in the day, like in the 80s, well, not the 80s, I guess, but in the 90s, I'd be out here and go into gun shops and whatever, and I couldn't afford to buy everything, but they didn't care if you hung out and wanted to fiddle with stuff. So you could rent at the ranges. There was a couple indoor ranges here in Tucson since I've been here. So there's two of them, and both of them have rentals. So you could go and rent. I forget what it costs. Let's say $7 or something. It's a long time ago. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, you could go in there and rent one, go in there and shoot it, come back, give it back, get another one, shoot it. Like that
Mm-hmm.
$7 was essentially like, yeah, just shoot as many of these guns as you want. And they didn't care, and they never cleaned them. And that was part of the deal, is you got to shoot these guns. If you wanted to clean them, you could or whatever, I guess, but they weren't cleaning them. So you got to experience the guns dirty, which I think is a better test for, I don't know, like a endurance test, or a stress test, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like if it's any good or not. Because some guns like a Dan Wesson, my experience, they jam up bad. They get really gummed up. They're hard to turn. The revolvers, at
Oh,
least,
okay. Yeah, the revolver.
they're
Okay.
super tight tolerances. So once they get dirty, they get ornery, and you
Yep.
got to really be wiping them down constantly, and which is fine because they cost a lot of money. But to me, that was annoying, and I never really appreciated that. I like the Smith, which just would work no matter what. And then like a Ruger again, you can just have that thing so filthy that it don't care. I mean, normal filth, not like grit,
Mm-hmm.
but just normal wear and tear type of stuff. Anyway, so I got to experience a bunch of the guns just growing up, or like whatever, being a young kid. And that's what, you didn't have the internet back then. So, you'd go shoot on a weekend, you'd go shoot on a Wednesday night or something. And, you'd spend whatever amount of money, but you got to shoot, you'd shoot ammo or whatever, but you got to shoot pretty much everything in both the rental cases at some point, like, with that type of system, you can, even if you don't like a gun, you can go shoot it. So I did, and that's where I made my opinions on stuff. I didn't know people that owned all these things, but my one friend would constantly rent Smiths and Smith automatics, Smith semis. I can't stand them. Like, I don't like them. It's like a crotch rocket to me. Like, I understand why people like them, but I'm not going to drive one. If I'm going to drive a bike around, it's going to be an Enduro or maybe a Harley. But I'm not going to drive a crotch rocket around. I don't want to bend over when I'm riding a motorcycle. It seems weird to me. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just the way you have to ride them. So for me, that big high bore axis, the same with SIGs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like them. I did own some SIGs because I appreciate how well they're built, and I like the design of a SIG, but I hated the bore axis, and that's why I eventually got rid of it, because I never shot it because I hated, like, it was like riding a crotch rocket. I just didn't like having to shoot it that way, and to some extent the grip angle was weird on it, or at least not my preference. But so anyway, so I got to experience a lot of that, and some of that is because over time, it's not like I went one weekend and shot them all, but just going to the range with some friends, or going to the range with people from work, or meeting somebody at a gun show and meeting them up at the range, and then you shoot for a while. That kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff would happen over the years, and then over time, oh wow, I've shot everything in the case except for that. So guess what? I'm renting that today, right? Oh, you got a new
Yep.
gun? Well, let me shoot it and see what's the difference with it. And it's sometimes it's subtle. It's 6-inch barrel or an 8-inch. Oh shit. Tony doesn't like these kind of conversations. Get a little bit too much into guns, and he needs to take a break. He only gets a certain amount of time in New Jersey to talk about guns. It's a 2-hour window, and then he has to change the subject. We'll have to talk about napkin holders and rice cookers. I thought maybe there was like a time limit. You're only allowed to talk about guns for 2 hours in New Jersey, and they cut off your internet. All right, you muted.
Yeah, I have no idea what was going on. I was listening to you talk about the gun rental case, and then you're gone. But yeah, it's funny as I look back on the time I've spent liking guns and then shooting guns, and the way my opinions changed from when I first was looking for my EDC back in '93 to a week ago when I'm shooting at a competition. And it's like, I remember thinking the Beretta 92, you'd have to be insane because, again, the long double action trigger pull. I'm like, how can you hit anything if the double action trigger pull is longer than the time it takes a freaking flintlock to go off? And it's like, nah, you just have to, learn to shoot. Or the crazy angle of a Glock. Like, why is this thing pointing to the ceiling? Like, how can you shoot with a gun that's pointed toward the ceiling? Because the grip angle's messed up. And he's like, no, you learn to grip the Glock and you learn how to shoot it. Because, the 1911 was what I trained on. So when I picked it up, it just felt natural. Well, it's not because you had great training, it's because that's the way it was designed to feel that way.
Well, and there's a certain amount of when you've got a metal frame and when they're building these things, they got all the time in the world to have different people hold on to it and say, okay, if we put this long a barrel, this much, um, what's that thing called? The dust cover, this
Hmm.
much weight up on the receiver, it's like going to be balanced, right? So by the time you put a slide and it slide needs to operate, but then all together, the barrel and the slide and everything, all apply to that balance. So you're used to a metal gun with a certain balance. Let's say it's around the trigger finger, right? And
Hmm.
then you get any kind of polymer gun where all of the weight now is in your hand in the
Hmm.
magazine, and that weight starts to disappear as you shoot it. So
Hmm.
before the weight was 25% of the gun, 20% of the gun, depending on 45 ACP, 40% of the gun, like some
Hmm.
percent of the gun. Now the weight is 60%, 70% of the gun, but halfway through the mag, the weight is 50% of the gun. The magazine is almost empty. The weight is one eighth of the gun. So you know what I mean? That's a whole different perception of shooting. The recoil impulse on a polymer frame, some of that gets absorbed, but it's maybe more
But then I
glitchy,
throw,
more picky. There's different names for it, but these
yeah.
things are characteristics that some people aren't going to dig. Yeah,
Well,
it's like
also
crotch
you got to
rocket
throw this
versus
in.
Harley, right?
You got to throw this in too, and this is me being completely honest. My military handgun training was butt. Like we do better, in my opinion. We do better at diversity shoot than the Marine Corps did training me on the 1911. Like that's the level of training they gave us. It was almost a familiarization training. I know there's an easier way to say that, but it was this is a 1911. This is how you load the magazine. This is how you load the gun, and we don't expect you to really be that accurate with it. Shoot that target down there, and I'm thinking it might have been 7 yards, and I got somewhere on the paper, and they were like, "All right, good to go. Next." I'm like, "Wow, that was garbage." I guess every Marine is a rifleman, and that pistol thing is just for the birds, huh? Like I just had no idea. And then when I purchased my 1911 that I was carrying around, I wasn't any better with it really. Because again, I purchased my firearm, but then I moved to Jersey, and without a firearms ID card, I couldn't even go into a range with it. I couldn't carry my gun to a range and shoot it because I didn't have a firearm. I didn't have permission from New Jersey to have the gun I already owned. I'm like, that made no one safer. That gave me a false sense of security. You know what I mean? A false sense that I could shoot my gun well because, well, I'd never trained on it. I'd never taken a training class. And to get my firearms ID card, I needed two other people as references that weren't related to me in a freaking state I just moved to, and the only people I knew were relatives. And I guess that just brings it around to, why am I a Second Amendment advocate? Because I'm looking at rules like that, thinking about how ignorant I was about my lack of skill and the fact that the state got in between me and even learning how ignorant I was with my lack of skills. So it's not that I was unsafe. It was just I wasn't that freaking good. But that's just my opinion on advocacy and the fact that sometimes gun laws are more of a hindrance to law abiding citizens than they help anyone. Hey,
Well,
Triggerology is out there. What up, man?
that's for sure. I was going to say, and then we got Triggerology, who's great at illustrating that and uh, getting that point across to people who may not be may not be aware that there's another position than the binary choice they've been given. You either hate guns or you hate children, or whatever crazy ass decision they're offered. There's definitely the reality to that. So Triggerology always does a good job of posting
Oh
things with
yeah,
that. And
definitely.
um, well, we're at the 2 hour mark. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted because I was throwing over there trying to figure out Cloverwood. Green on Instagram, and I thought maybe he was going to come around, so I was like throwing the links out in case he's around, but he must be doing something. Just poked onto Instagram, or his phone is dialed or something. But I think at this point, we got 2 hours in. We did a pretty good job, although we didn't touch any of the actual questions that come in to askgunquestions.com. So, I mean, the thing is, we don't get a stream of them, so it's not like we're going to get behind. So any of them that came in, and if you did tune in for a specific question, I do apologize that we didn't even open that book up today, but we will next week again. And, I doubt that we'll have so many over there that we won't get to yours. But we do them in the order that they come in. You can go to askgunquestions.com. It's not like an email farm or anything. We don't ask for any information. Just type in a question. If you want to put a link, because it helps, with some kind of, picture or something, or point us at something. But there's nothing else we require over there. It just gives us something to chat about. Tony and Clover and I get together on Saturdays to give you the perspective of some old dudes who've been around guns for a while. And we'll answer whatever questions we can, or put you in the direction of the answers if we don't have them. Clover has a show with Ghost. I think this is the off week. So every other week they get together and do a show. On Tuesdays, Clover and I get together and do the coaching show on, at 11 a.m. Eastern. And Clover's about to start up his next season of his podcast. But Tony, what do you got coming up?
I got diversity shoots coming up. I have the Rick Ector thing coming up. So Rick Ector's training like over 1,000 women in a weekend.
Oh, snap. I forgot about that. That's next Saturday, right?
Yep. So that's what's going on there. And then I have diversity shoots every other week in August. I have one on August 3rd, another one on August 17th, and then the last one on August 31st in the month of August. So it's recoil range, gun for hire range, and Union Hill Gun Club. So I have all these events coming up back to back to back. So if you're in Jersey or you're in New York or Pennsylvania and you want to check us out, go to diversityshoot.com, hit the link. And pretty much I'm going to launch it all on Sunday, the ticket purchases, so you can get them, and hopefully giving you enough time to get out there and hear about it. I'm going to start posting every day with links in my stories so you can actually purchase a ticket in any one of those 3 ranges in the month of August. So I hope to see you guys out there. Can't wait. That's what we're doing. And if you want to help me out, if you want to help us get to these events or help pay for these events, or even want to donate to help pay for pizza, write pizza on something and go to 2A, excuse me, and follow me on any of the links and just donate $20 and say it's for pizza. You can pay for a pie, because we pretty much go through about between 3 to 6 every event. So I don't know if I can get.
If Philly has cheesesteaks and New York has pizza, what does New Jersey have a food?
Yeah, we have a food, but I mean, most people wouldn't know what you're talking about because it is a Jersey food. It's either called pork roll or Taylor ham.
Oh,
and depends on what part of Jersey you're from, whether you call it pork roll or Taylor ham. But yeah,
is it like a sandwich or like a?
It's a sandwich. It's like bologna. Let's put it like that. It's like bologna or what's that thing? Canadian ham. It's kind of odd thing like that. Canadian bacon. Yeah.
Okay. But it's like a sub sandwich where you pile it on a bread and then.
It's a breakfast sandwich. Yeah, it's a breakfast sandwich meat. Most people do it for breakfast, but like bacon, you can do it anytime. It's really good. It's kind of not spicy, but it's better than bologna. Because remember, I'm not from up here, so I only had it when I came up here. Never even heard of it, because understand that whole foodie culture didn't start taking off until after Food Network was launched nationwide.
Good point.
Yeah, people didn't start getting foods in other regions up until then because there was no point. I'd never heard of a bagel. I've never eaten a bagel until I got to Jersey back in the early 90s, because they just weren't part of my life growing up in, Southwestern Virginia. But they are up here. So yeah, it's like good bologna, like little denser, awesome, especially when you fry it. but almost anything works that way. But yeah, when you fry it, it's really good. It's for breakfast sandwiches, it's for all kinds of stuff. And that's a Jersey food. But of course, we have so many people from Philly coming up through South Jersey. And then we have people from New York coming down through North Jersey. So it kind of gets mixed in. Jersey has that, you know, between Philly and New York thing.
Oh, I never really thought about it like that. But now that I drove there, at least around there, um, you're either, well, you pretty much have to drive through Jersey. Otherwise, you're
Mhm.
driving a really long way around to go between those two towns. I never thought about it. There's probably a ton of people that go between those two towns.
Oh, definitely. And plus, understand, you know, just like any other large city, which, you know, New York and Philly, you have the suburbs that go out that's less expensive to live in, and people just drive into this as commuters. So they're what they call them bedroom neighborhoods of both Philadelphia and New York in Jersey. And I'm talking it goes like counties deep because those areas are so big and the land around them comparatively to Manhattan, Staten Island, Long Island, it's cheap.
You got trains also that go between
Hmm. And
commuter
then
trains.
you have the shore, which those people that live in those cities go to Jersey Shore because it's an amazing beach. I guess I don't particularly like it, but they make a big deal about it up here. And they even have names for the people that come down. If you come from New York City, they call you Bennies, and if you come from Philly, they call you Shoebies when you go to the shore. Bennies for Brooklyn, Elizabeth, Newark, and New York. That was all the train stops, I guess, going from New York
Oh,
down
okay.
to the shore. And then shoebies were the people in Philly that would come to the beach and they would pack their lunch in shoe boxes. And of course, eat their lunch on the beach and then leave the shoe boxes there. And the locals started calling them shoebies.
Yeah. So that was like you could book over there for lunch and book back to work. You mean?
You know, you can book over there for the weekend. Even if
Okay.
you didn't have a lot of money, you could be at the Jersey Shore.
But leave it a mess. Yeah. Well, that's
Hmm.
usually how it is with the locals versus all the tourists.
Yep. There's always that, regardless of where it is. I mean, I'm sure it was in, you know, Niagara Falls in the early 1900s. When people visiting Niagara Falls and trashing it and leaving.
All right. Well, again, thanks for doing the diversity shoots, continuing to do them. You're not getting rich, but I know you're affecting a bunch of people and keeping a momentum going that's necessary in Jersey.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And, you know, I appreciate all the people that have been out there helping me through this. Well, we're 8 years deep now.
What are you thinking going into 24?
My whole thing is before the end of the summer to be a 501c3. So I think going into 2024, we're going to have a lot of promises made. And I'm just hoping it turns out like we want, which is really busy. I feel we're going to be really busy in 2024 in multiple states.
Yeah, I see. There's a big election year, and then just a lot of hype. I can see 24 being a year of growth. I guess that's what I say.
Hmm.
A year of getting bigger. Well, we'll
So
see. It's kind of early to
yep,
tell, but that's what my take is on it right now.
yep. My whole thing is to be able to market ourselves as a 501c3 that's actually doing work in multiple states, and maybe bring some people in and educate them about the Second Amendment, how to be an advocate, how to fight for their rights, and the necessity of them fighting for it. Like there's a lot of things people don't know when they get into firearms, and many of us only became, you know, a what do you call them, advocate after like a decade or more owning a firearm. And what I'm trying to do with the diversity shoot is cut that down to, oh, you buying your first gun? Well, this is what you should know. Like you should get on this train and start making a difference now because this is what they're trying to do.
It's interesting. That's something that could be accomplished as well through the kind of thing that Walk Talk America is doing with the inserts for mental health awareness. So
Hmm.
you could do the same thing with like, hey, so you bought a gun. Here's the welcome to the world of Second Amendment advocacy, defense, whatever you want to call it. and give people some idea of where they're at in 2023 or whatever it is, jumping into the mix. Because as you said that, I was thinking, you're right, that most people get into advocacy after some amount of time owning a firearm. But
Hmm.
when you say that, that's most people. I would agree with you 5 years ago for sure. Like
Hmm.
3, 4 years ago, I would have to start disagreeing with you now. I'd have to seriously think about it because there's so many new gun owners. Now, I might just be hearing so many new gun owners, and in reality, it's like 30%. But right now, it seems like 50% of the gun owners are kind of new, and they're coming at it with like they got it. They got into guns because they were concerned about the awareness of this stuff. So I think there's a little difference now. I don't know if it's if it's drastic as
I,
50%, but
No, I think it's different, but it's nowhere near where we need to be. So,
well, I hear you there. Yeah, I hear
yeah,
you. I
and
just think it's more than it used to be. And I'm thinking, I guess what I'm really saying is that back in the day, there was just nothing to defend. There was really no fight. There was the NRA saying, like, some of this stuff is outrageous. Like the Hughes Amendment was bullshit. This
mhm,
was whatever. Or like Ruby Ridge was a bad idea. Like that was horrible. And that was all
yep,
because of a half an inch on a gun barrel. You didn't need
mhm,
to do lethal uh, stuff like that because of whatever you call like what's the word, like just a paperwork type of thing. Like
yep,
there's really no more danger to a half an inch barrel. So the defenses or the things that we were worried about were so few. They weren't less important. They were just so few that there wasn't an advocacy to get in. If you watch um, the show from the '90s that I like so much, the Johnny Roland shooting show. So
mhm,
he's urging people to be advocates because he could see the beginnings of the kind of rumblings as you saw the '94 assault weapons ban start to hit, and the successes that the antis had for a little bit there with that, and then the Knicks and all that bullshit. They created a bunch of fear out of nothing, and were able to infringe quite a bit at the national level out of nowhere, like historically, like out of nowhere, and that was an issue. And now we've become way more aware of that, and that's all I'm getting at is until those things hit us at the national level, there was very little concern because there was little awareness. So it's not like people decided, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's people weren't deciding, I'm not going to be all that much of an advocate for my rights because they didn't think about that. They just knew they had the right. Nobody challenged them on it. So it was more of like, do I want to buy a gun because I think it's safe or not? Or do I want to buy a gun because I feel I need one or not? Or do I want to buy a gun? That was about the only questions we had. I guess sometimes there was the, will my individual state make them illegal? So maybe I should buy my gun in preparation for bad law. But that, unfortunately, that's always the 9 states that we know about that have.
always. Yep. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So that's what I'm trying to do, bring people in. And also, because a lot of us put pressure on new gun owners, let's go ahead and tell the truth. Some of the veteran gun owners that have never done anything, never written, never called, never participated, never advocated. It's time to get some of those to wake up too, because we have over a million. We had over a million gun owners prior to 2020 in Jersey, but we never had close to that number. Participating in advocacy. So there's a lot of people that own firearms that have never done anything. So it doesn't all go on, new gun owners.
No,
There's
there's
always room
actually
for
a
more.
whole. I was just typing in here. I wanted to defend the old timers, but at the same time, there's like even a whole additional burden now that there is an awareness that we have a rights to that need to be defended, and the people that have had the experience to see the waves and all the stuff that's happened over the years, even if they weren't paying immediate attention, the fact that
Hmm.
they lived through all the stress and the awareness, like Y2K, for example, and some of the big things, Ruby Ridge, Waco, like people lived
Hmm.
through that stuff. And then to some extent, Fast and Furious. So even if you weren't paying critical attention at those times, you did, you are to some extent more aware than the people who literally weren't alive, right? Like literally weren't alive.
Yeah.
So to some extent, I'm thinking there is an obligation, certainly an opportunity, if not an obligation, to old timers to just be open to conversations. You don't have to necessarily mansplain to all the youngins because they won't deal with that any more than we would have dealt with it back in the day. but be available. Let them know, hey, if you want to listen to an old timer, there's a bunch of us out here that are open. Send us a link and we'll jump in a chat if we're available and pick our brains. Ask us what it was like. We should be standing on each other's shoulders. The way that the antis get at us is by being able to do the same old fucking songs over and over because we forget the tunes and we just don't realize that, they're using the same old playbook. So anyway, kind of going off on a rant here, but I didn't want to suggest that the old timers I just wanted to say they're not guilty, but at the same time, if they sit around and do nothing now, well, then they're lazy, right? They have an opportunity right now. We have an opportunity when I'm saying we're the old timers.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, with that, we are wrapping it up. We do have a store. I have a store. I'm going to put a link up here, or not a link. I'm going to figure out my link, but I'll put in a commercial up here for it. And we'll say thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back next Saturday to answer questions. If you go over to askgunquestions.com, you can put the questions in there. We'll grab them. Thanks again.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
Little dude knows when that song plays that he's about to go potty, so he's running over.
All right, dude.
AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built.
Oh, sorry, I didn't go off air. Let me hit the button.